Is there a threshold for you, and do you think there should be one for the United States government, at which the U.S. would say, let's hold off for a second in terms of civilian casualties? Is there a point at which you would start to...
You just heard Republican Senator Lindsey Graham answer the question that many of us have asked. How many innocent civilians have to die until you call for a ceasefire? And the answer is as many as it takes. 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, 100,000. The number doesn't matter. We're unequivocally standing with Israel no matter what. They can bomb refugee camps, administer collective punishment, use white phosphorus. It doesn't matter how many innocents die. We are going to stand with Israel, even if that makes us complicit. Now, that answer is not surprising coming from a bloodthirsty warmonger like Lindsey Graham, but many liberals might be surprised to learn that this is the same stance as the Biden administration. They've explicitly stated that they're not drawing red lines for Israel, and that's not surprising considering that the White House press secretary dismissed calls for a ceasefire as repugnant and compared anti-Israel protesters, who, by the way, are calling for a ceasefire, to the Nazis who marched in Charlottesville in 2017. And the reason why they're saying this, the reason why it's permissible to just dismiss the suffering and slaughter of innocent Palestinians is because our politicians and media have so thoroughly dehumanized Palestinians that the idea of an innocent Palestinian itself is literally being challenged. And that's not hyperbole.
I would encourage the other side to not so lightly throw around the idea of innocent Palestinian civilians, as is frequently said. I don't think we would so lightly throw around the term innocent Nazi civilians during World War II.
I mean, 50% of the people in Gaza are children, but we have to be really careful with our language here so as to not humanize the Palestinians, because we don't want to give Americans the impression that Palestinians are innocent in the middle of Israel's genocide. Otherwise, the public might start to question whether or not it's ethical for us to support them being wiped off the map or being leveled like a parking lot, as one politician put it.
I don't even want to call it the Palestinian flag because they're not a state, they're a territory that's about to probably get eviscerated and go away here shortly, as we're going to turn that into a parking lot.
Despicable, but completely on brand for Republicans. I mean, they don't care about Americans being slaughtered endlessly in countless mass shootings, so of course they're not going to care about innocent civilians in Gaza being massacred as well. But on the subject of gun violence, many Democratic politicians have rightfully posed the question to Republicans that is now being asked to them. How many more innocent people have to die until you take action? In the case of gun violence, how many more innocent Americans have to be murdered until Republicans do something? Ban assault weapons, pass a national background check law. And we've never gotten a direct answer to that question, but years of inaction has essentially told us everything that we need to know. And when Democratic politicians hammer Republicans for their complicity in gun violence, they're quick to call out the role played by the NRA. And they're correct to point that out. The NRA spends millions of dollars every single election cycle, almost exclusively on Republicans, to buy their complicity. And it works. As Democratic Congressman Richie Torres puts it, no amount of mass murder against children is enough for the Republican Party to let go of the iron grip the NRA has on them. Sickening. And he even courageously called for the abolition of the NRA entirely. And what he's saying here makes sense, because when human life is at stake, how can you justify taking money from an organization that is effectively paying you to be complicit in the deaths of innocent people? It's basically blood money. But the same can be said about him as well. Like the NRA, AIPAC is a far-right neoconservative interest group that spends millions and millions of dollars every single election cycle lobbying politicians to buy their complicity in Israel's oppression of the Palestinian people in West Bank and Gaza. But unlike the NRA, AIPAC actually gives to both Republicans and Democrats, though both organizations spend close to the same amount lobbying each year, give or take. So if you're wondering why liberal Democrats unequivocally support Israel's right-wing government and refuse to criticize Netanyahu's war crimes, even though he is basically their version of Donald Trump, this is why. It's the same reason why the Republicans won't do anything about gun violence. In the same way that the NRA buys compliance, AIPAC does the same when it comes to Israel policy. Take Richie Torres, for example, again. His biggest campaign contributor in the last election cycle was AIPAC, and that money was well spent because Richie Torres has not only shot down the notion of a ceasefire, but he's also criticized people calling for one and also denies the notion altogether that Israel is doing a genocide in Gaza. Now, keep in mind that Israeli Holocaust scholar Raz Siegel says that Israel's assault on Gaza is a textbook case of genocide. And on top of that, the UN's Director of Human Rights resigned over the West's support for what he calls genocide, his words, not mine. But if you ask Richie Torres whether or not it's a genocide, well, here's what he'll say.
The notion that Israel is committing ethnic cleansing and genocide is absurd. And keep in mind that the critics of Israel have been accusing Israel of committing genocide long before the conflict. Israel is in an enormously complicated situation. If you believe, as I do, that Israel has the right to defend itself, in order to defend itself, it has to drive Hamas out of power. If Israel were to keep Hamas in power, it would run the risk of an even deadlier terrorist attack against its own people in the future. And Israel cannot afford a Hamas that's empowered to perpetrate deadly terrorist attack against its own people. The highest responsibility of any government, whether it's the United States or Israel, is to protect its people.
With a straight face, he said the notion that Israel is committing a genocide is absurd. Now, for one, I'm more inclined to agree with the Israeli Holocaust scholar and an expert on human rights at the UN. I'm inclined to think that they know a lot more about this than Richie Torres, but I mean, his point is that Israel has the right to defend itself no matter the cost. So this begs the question, again, how many innocent Palestinians have to die in the name of Israel defending itself before Richie Torres says enough is enough? 10,000, 20,000? I mean, 3,195 children plus have already been killed in 3 weeks in the name of self-defense. So the question is, how much is enough for Richie Torres? And as someone who knows the power of lobbying, he knows the answer. So let's put his tweet back up, and you'll notice that I took the liberty to change a couple of words. Quote, no amount of mass murder against children is enough for the Democratic Party to let go of the iron grip AIPAC has on them. Sickening. So when he calls out the NRA for their blood money, that's the pot calling the kettle black. And I may have changed some words there in that tweet, but that is effectively the position that Richie Torres, as well as the Biden administration, is taking, which isn't a surprise considering all of the money that Biden took as well from the Israel lobby during his tenure as a U.S. senator. But if you point this out, you're anti-Semitic, according to Richie Torres, because he responded to claims that he's bought off by lobbyists saying there's a false narrative that I am pro-Israel because of, quote, the Jewish lobby or, quote, Jewish money or whatever anti-Semitic tropes critics wish to invoke. Left unmentioned is the fact that I have been pro-Israel for nearly a decade, long before I ever thought of running for Congress. Now, to his latter point, I mean, I guess that's fair. Maybe he was unapologetically pro-Israel before running for Congress, but the same can also be said about Republicans that Richie Torres criticizes. Maybe Jim Jordan, the single biggest individual recipient of NRA money, was also pro-gun before he got into Congress, and he was always really enthusiastic about no gun safety laws in America. I mean, if it's true for Richie Torres, the same can be said for pro-gun Republicans, right? Now, his main point there is that pointing out this corruption is apparently anti-Semitic. Now, if you'll notice, he did a little bit of a switcheroo there, and he said the Jewish lobby and Jewish money, which is a straw man because critics who refer to AIPAC are referring to the Israel lobby. Now, there is a difference, and it's important that we don't muddy the waters between these differences and obfuscate. So the difference is that the Israel lobby does not spend money at the behest of the Jewish people. This is not a Jewish human rights organization or a Jewish advocacy organization. They spend money at the behest of Israel's right-wing government. And this isn't unique to Israel. If you look at the total foreign lobbying done since 2016, Israel is actually 9th out of 10. Number 1 is China. Is it xenophobic to point that out? No, because everyone knows that China is lobbying when it comes to business and trade. Saudi Arabia spends more than Israel. So when we point out that it's wrong to sell them weapons because we know that they're going to use them on innocent Yemenis, is it Islamophobic to point that out? No, because Saudi Arabia represents the Saudi Arabian government when they lobby, not Muslim people. Similarly, when the Israel lobby spends money, they are not advocating for Jewish people. They are promoting the neoconservative positions that the Israeli government holds when it comes to Iran. And they're trying to buy silence when it comes to the Israeli government's treatment of Palestinians. But all of a sudden, according to Richie Torres, it's anti-Semitic. No, that is such a despicable thing to say, because anti-Semitism is very real and it is rising around the globe. Now, there are conspiracy theories about Jews controlling the governments and the media, and they are deeply harmful and anti-Semitic, and we must defeat them. But what these defenders of Israel are doing is they're trying to muddy the waters and pretend as if criticism of Israel is tantamount to those right-wing conspiracy theories about Jewish people, when that doesn't even make sense, because we don't have that same standard for any other government, because it's illogical. Of course, you can critique a government without critiquing the people. People are people and governments are governments. But what Richie Torres is paid to do is draw this equivalent specifically to silence critics of Israel. But in doing so, he is effectively smearing Jewish people, a community that he is not a part of, because Jewish people are not responsible for the actions of Israel's fascist government. And to say that a criticism of Israel is tantamount to a criticism of Jewish people, is that not an incitement of hatred? Because when we see that Israel is doing war crimes, you're basically saying, no, Jewish people are responsible for that too. That's not okay. Countless Jewish peace activists have led protests against Israel's genocide in Gaza. So when you conflate Israel with all Jewish people, you are attaching culpability to them in the same way that Israel's government is attaching culpability to all Palestinians by drawing a false equivalence between them and Hamas. You're no better than the politicians who are saying there are no innocent Palestinians. Again, people are people and governments are governments. Muddying the waters in that regard is downright dangerous. It helps to proliferate hate against these communities that are seeing an increase of hate because of what's happening. And if you can point out the NRA's effects on politicians, you obviously can do the same when it comes to Israel. And spoiler alert, we live in a late-stage capitalist hellscape. Most policy positions of politicians can be explained by simply looking up their donors. Want to know which politicians support Medicare for all? The ones that haven't taken money from the health insurance industry. Want to know which ones are perfectly fine with 68,000 Americans dying every single year due to a lack of health insurance? Well, the ones who took donations from the health industry. Want to know which politicians don't support an increase in the minimum wage? Just look up the donations that they've taken from large multinational corporations who disproportionately.
What has been striking, and I want to turn a little bit to what you've been writing about in your book, is we have now maybe close to a dozen, maybe a little more, in members of Congress who have attempted to push for a ceasefire, haven't signed on to some of these censure votes that the House and Senate has taken. Bernie Sanders has been a little bit disappointing in terms of, to say the least, in terms of calling for a ceasefire. I think he called for a humanitarian pause. I'm not sure what that means. There obviously is something about the word has gone out. We don't want you saying the word ceasefire.
Right. He said the bombs from both sides should stop, but he won't say ceasefire. And you're like, well, what's the difference?
Well, why is it? I mean, it's obvious. The difference is obviously either the Biden administration has said this is an unhelpful term for us, or what? Because, one of the things that was sort of a coincidence, although I don't know that it, I think this is what AIPAC had in mind, is AIPAC has been basically off the past 2 cycles, at least, been on a very explicit sort of discipline campaign for potential dissenters in a situation like this in Congress. Tell us about it in the context of your book.
Yeah, it was really kind of surreal to go back over it because I just did the recording for the audiobook over the last couple weeks, and I hadn't looked at the book for 6 months before that, and to see it in the context of this war was an odd experience. But you're right. It really goes back to February of 2019, and it goes back to the election of the squad in general, but in particular, Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. And February 2019 is when Democratic Majority for Israel, DMFI, launches. And it was launched, I report in the book, with basically the support of AIPAC. Like if you gave money to DMFI, then that would count kind of toward your dues, your credit to AIPAC. Because, depending on what kind of tier you are at AIPAC, you get different perks. At the AIPAC conference, you might get a private meeting with Schumer, or you get to meet Kevin McCarthy with a handful of other people who gave $1 million plus, and at $5 million it's a different perk. 500. So if you gave money to DMFI, that would count towards AIPAC, because AIPAC was still doing grassroots. They hadn't gotten into the super PAC game yet, so they let DMFI do that in the 2020 cycle. But then in the 2022 cycle, AIPAC got into the game as well. And I write about how J Street, going into that cycle, raised about $2 to $3 million, and they thought DMFI would spend about 10 million, somewhere between 5 and 10, and that would be enough to make them competitive. You don't need to be 1-to-1, because the argument that DMFI and AIPAC are making is so unpopular, they need to spend overwhelmingly. They actually came up with a rough calculation that AIPAC needs to outspend the progressive opponent by about 10-to-1.
Wow.
But if it's like 2 or 3 or 4-to-1, then it's a clean fight. It's a fair fight. And so then AIPAC comes in with more than $30 million, just throwing over the apple cart, like completely changed the calculation. Because now they could go in, and I think they spent $7 million against Donna Edwards in Prince George's County, because she had cast a vote when she first got to office in 2009. That was not completely supportive of whatever Israel was doing in Gaza with that particular war, if you remember that one. And they've had it in for Donna Edwards ever since. So when she tried to come back, they just nuked her, spent millions against Summer Lee. Nita Alam, if you remember her, she was the first Muslim elected in North Carolina. Her friends were the ones who were killed in that very famous Chapel Hill hate crime, where 3 or 4 Muslim men were killed. And she decided to get into politics, and she was elected at Durham.
Welcome to a special, I guess, a unique episode of the Nick and CJ Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. Nick will be joining in just a little bit. So he's joining a little late, and then we'll overlap a little bit, and then I'll leave, and then he'll do a story or two after I'm gone. So that's kind of how we're doing it today. I know it was kind of grueling to watch this as an introduction, but it's a needed video to watch for the segment. Jesus Christ, Ryan Grimm is terrible on video. He is horrific, and practice does not make him better at all. He's been doing the show on Breaking Points for a while. Excruciating to watch this guy. Like, he could make the most exciting thing sound like the worst, boringest shit ever. But like I said, we had to play it because the title of this video is why progressive leaders are so terrified to say ceasefire. And it's going to swing back to that more directly when it gets back to Sam, but it goes with the segment, and that is Bernie Sanders refuses to call for a ceasefire. So what I'm going to do is go to Twitter, and I'm going to come back to this video to set the context better for that video and for the next part of this video, the Majority Report video that's coming up, where they're going to start focusing more on the Bernie part being disappointing, but we shall see. Now let's play. So Bernie has, let me say it this way, Bernie has gone viral on Twitter and other social media, but not for a good reason. I'll start with Medea Benjamin. And Medea Benjamin, formerly the leader or president of Code Pink, she says, if you care about Palestinians, Bernie Sanders, you would call for a ceasefire. Now, you would think, oh, didn't you guys cover this? No, this is new. This is new. So before there was a video where he was going in on the people who, his former staffers that asked him to call for a ceasefire. This is a new video because the pressure in the streets have been so great. You hear them complaining about all the protests on college campuses, calling it anti-Semitism, but they understand, they're projecting that, but they understand that those thousands of people that are marching are going to translate into votes or lack of votes. And then we got several stories today that's going to talk about, you can see the pivot by the administration because of the pressure they're feeling within their party too. And you see it in the video that I'm going to be showing you in just a second. Some of the other who we have labeled the NATO left really going hard or harder than you would expect at the Democrats on this issue. So maybe this is the issue, just like it kind of stiffened Rashida Tlaib's backbone and Cori Bush. It seemed to have stiffened some of the backbones of the NATO left on this specific issue only. And we'll examine some of those videos. But let's first listen to Bernie Sanders. And he put this video out. Let's listen and then I'll read the caption there because I think he may.
Today is a disaster. Congress must take action. The administration must take action. The world must take action. Today, 3 weeks after Hamas's barbaric attack against civilians in Israel, which began this war, many hundreds of thousands of innocent men, women, and children in Gaza are on the brink. Over the past 3 weeks, it is estimated that some 8,000 people in Gaza have been killed in bombings, including more than 3,000 children, and far more have been wounded. More than 1 million people in Gaza have been displaced from their homes, and some 670,000 are sheltering in UN installations where they are down to 1 liter of water per person per day. They lack sufficient food, water, medical supplies, or fuel. The hospitals and medical facilities there are in nightmarish conditions, with hundreds of babies in incubators and patients on life support at risk of death should the generators that sustain them run out of fuel. Corridors are lined with injured and displaced people, and overwhelmed doctors must turn patients away or operate without anesthesia or antibiotics. The humanitarian crisis is dire and getting worse by the minute. There must be a humanitarian pause now so that sufficient supplies, food, water, medicine, fuel, can reach the people of Gaza. If not,
so humanitarian pause. So things are so bad that you're saying, Bernie, it requires us, the war, to be put on pause. So if it's a pause, that I would assume you mean you wanted to resume at a point. So at what threshold, what are the points that need to be reached, the threshold, if there's more than one, that need to be reached for you to say, let's resume it? Bernie Sanders, and it is Bernie Sanders is textbook, or is a perfect example of why social Democrats, sock Dems, well, aren't the people that's gonna lead anybody to any sort of promised land. Teaming up with people like this will only bring you heartache. Bernie Sanders is good on domestic policy and terrible on foreign policy. If you believe the strategy needs to be international, how do you strategize with sock Dems like Bernie Sanders, who are very weak on foreign policy? How do you do that? Let's let him finish his dribble, and I'll give a little more commentary. It's only a few more seconds here, so let's let him finish.
Thousands more will die needlessly. We cannot allow that to happen. A stop to the bombing is critical to save innocent lives and secure the safe return of hostages.
Just shameful. I wonder, does he, like, I know what he has to say in front of the camera. He doesn't look, he looks like a tormented man who knows he's full of shit, or it has to publicly be full of shit. He doesn't look like a man who speaks from a place of righteousness, because you know you are 100% in line with humanity. He doesn't speak from that point. But let's go to some other reaction to this, because in all of this thing that he said, and if you're watching this video, you might be thinking like, oh, well, what's wrong with the video? What's wrong with the video is that this is not a ceasefire. What's wrong with the video is that just last week there was another video where you were fiercely calling for a demand for more money so they can go in and take out these, go in and use some more military might. They both can't coexist. You can't turn around, give grenades, a couple of choppers, some Uzis to a drunken, deranged maniac, and then when he kills people, you want to go humanitarian pause. That's just weird. That's just weird. But let's I sum up a lot of reaction that I'm going to go over, but here is some other reaction. This is Means TV. Anti-ceasefire equals pro-genocide. We won't forget what spineless disappointment Bernie and many other progressives have been on this. And then you have Glenn Greenwald saying, it's fine, even good, to point out the actual humanitarian horrors enabled by bipartisan U.S. policy. But Bernie cheered those policies 3 weeks ago. And this pause he wants doesn't remotely change that. This is just cheap coincidence. I'm sorry, cheap conscious cleansing without real substance. And Nick with the viral tweet, this scumbag can't even bring himself to say the words ceasefire. Bernie is disgusting. And I concur with all of those. Now, Bernie can't say it. And I have these two other tweets here because I want to show you. Now, let's see who can say something like that. Breaking, Senator Durbin. Senator Durbin, you know how terrible Senator Durbin is? Becomes first U.S. senator to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. Bernie Sanders, the progressive guru, can't say ceasefire. But this clown, this corporate clown can say it. But let's listen.
I think a lot of people listening to people in power, President, you, Secretary Blinken, calling for a humanitarian pause, are asking themselves, why is that different from a ceasefire? 2 years ago, 2021, during an escalation of violence between Israel and Gaza, you called for a ceasefire and you said you, quote, couldn't disagree more with Netanyahu's policies, quote, when it came to the treatment of Palestinians. Is a ceasefire needed now?
I think it is, at least in the context of both sides agreeing. For example, the release of those who have been kidnapped should be part of this, immediate release. That should be the beginning of it. An effort should be made to engage in conversation between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Let's face it, this has gone on for decades. Whatever the rationale from the beginning, it has now reached an intolerable level. We need to have a resolution in the Middle East that gives some promise for the future.
Have you told the president, the White House, you think it's time for a ceasefire? Because that is a word that the president is intentionally not using.
Well, believe me, what I said earlier about ceasefires under circumstances, for example, the release of those who have been kidnapped as part of it.
Now, understand, you hear that she alluded to it, saying that it seems to be the word ceasefire everybody's playing hot potato with. Nobody wants to say it. And in the video that I started with, the very boring video that I started with Ryan Grimm, it was excruciating. You heard Sam Cedar also allude to it, and he said there seems to be some sort of instructions or memo sent out to say stay away from the word ceasefire, and now you're hearing her allude to the same thing. Let's continue with Senator Durbin, the guy who is apparently
indication that this is a good faith effort on the part of the other side. But no, I've not communicated with the White House on that.
Well, they heard you now. Senator Lindsey Graham on CNN this week, he is.
Senator Durbin is to the left of Bernie Sanders when it comes to Israel. And Brianna Joy Gray tagged Senator Bernie Sanders just in case he missed this part. Just in case he missed it. Thank you, Jennifer, for that comment. Glenn Greenwald also speaks on this topic where you're noticing Democrats are coming out, and there's another segment we're going to do when Nick gets here with Kamala Harris. Democrats are all pivoting. They're all now talking about Palestinians. They're seeing the poll numbers. It's not going away. This problem with their stance with unequivocal support for Israel, without talking about the Palestinian plight, at least for the Democratic Party, not for us. That's their threshold, is a red line. And they're seeing it in the polling. And Glenn Greenwald sees this point, saw this also, this dynamic happening. And he says, this new stick, I always have trouble with that word. Stitch. This new stick of Biden and Dem suddenly fraying concern for Palestinian civilians is as transparent as it is despicable. Yes, it's so clearly transparent. Netanyahu was extremely clear from the start about the kind of massive war he intended to wage. And Biden Dems sent arms and money knowing this. And so we have another. This is Senator Chris Van Hollen points out that according to the UN, about 6 times more children have been killed in Gaza in just 3 weeks than have been killed in Ukraine during the entire war. Democrats are now having to pivot and point this out. So let's watch.
Now, the siege is being accompanied by a ferocious bombing campaign. In just the first 6 days of the war, Israel dropped 6,000 bombs in the densely populated Gaza Strip. Israel has stopped reporting the number of bombs being dropped, but the intense pace has continued. Last night, my wife and I learned that someone we know well lost 2 family members and 4 of their children killed in bombing in Gaza. So they are not yet included in the most recent death toll reported by the United Nations yesterday, which says the number of dead has risen to over 8,300 people, 70% of them women and children, including 3,457 children. These
70%. 70% are women and children. So let's just say all the men are Hamas. All of them. They're not, but let's just say for the sake of this argument, this point I'm trying to make, all the men are Hamas. Is it worth it to kill out of 100 people, 30 of them are Hamas, 70 of them are women and children? You're telling me that's the trade-off? That Zionists are okay with, that the Biden administration is okay with, and the Democratic Party and the United States government. On what planet is that ratio okay? And I'm granting you 30% Hamas, that's not even there. Because that other 30% is, quite frankly, males that are under 18. Or males in the teens. Let's give him that, because he did say women and children. It's indefensible. This position that the Democratic Party and Joe Biden has is indefensible. This position that the Israeli lobby has is indefensible. This position that Israel has is indefensible. That's why the world is on Palestinian side. And if they don't be careful, this could tip into the absolute destruction of the state of Israel. If the other Arab nations enter this war, the U.S. cannot be in war, gearing up for war against China while at war in Ukraine. And now we're adding this in Palestine. And then we're spread out in other little satellite places like Somalia and Syria. Like we're too stretched thin. So if these other people in this region enter this fight, what do you think is going to happen to Israel? What do you think when the Arab nations that enter the fight to help the Palestinians come in and start taking territory of so-called Israel, where they believe is Palestine? What do you think is going to do with that when Hezbollah comes up from Lebanon, from the north? When things get so bad that Turkey enters this or they send troops. This is not going to end well.
These are UN figures. According to UN figures, that is about 6 times more children killed in 3 weeks in Gaza.
So now look at the Negro servant on the left. You know him as Lloyd Austin. I know him as Negro servant number 37827. Really can't stand black people that are fucking Negro servants. But I want to go back to some of the statistics that he's saying, because I did interrupt him mid statistic, and it's very important to hear it clearly.
According to UN figures, that is about 6 times more children killed in 3 weeks in Gaza than the number of children killed in Ukraine during the entire war.
6 times, I'm going to rewind it back. 6 times the amount of kids have been killed in Palestine than the amount of kids that Bernie Sanders is happily sending money to over in Ukraine. And he can't say ceasefire. What I don't like, what kind of person can do that? You think Bernie Sanders doesn't know 6 times the amount of kids have been killed in Palestine? You don't think he knows that? Or maybe he doesn't. Maybe he is intentionally avoiding it to save his conscience.
Or there. The executive director of UNICEF, Catherine Russell, said at the current rate, more than 420 children are being killed or injured in Gaza each day, a number, she said, which should shake us to our core. I agree.
400 plus kids at this rate will be killed in Gaza every day. Then we turn around and talk about China has a human rights problem. We are ran by a bunch of psychopaths, murderous psychopaths. You're seeing 2 of them on the screen. The one on the right is projecting like he's not one of them, but he's complicit the same. Then the Negro goon on the left, these are just despicable people. To know that number and how you don't go, right today, we're going to call for the cease. He should have been like 400 and what? Okay, we're going, we're scheduling a flight over to Israel right now, sir, and demand a ceasefire. That's what heroes look like, but they want to project like they're heroes for us. Let's move to the next part of this. Bernie Sanders. That's Bernie Sanders. So now, I wanted to go to this my next part of this, which is video. And I guess I'm meshing segments together because they do overlap. Because while Bernie Sanders is refusing to call for a ceasefire, you have the Bernie Sanders coalition calling out the Biden administration. It seems like this is one of the issues. They're like, nah, man. Nah, we're not sitting back silent, which is good and bad because you're in the same position as Bernie Sanders where, yeah, now they're talking up a lot more than Bernie Sanders, but as far as the same position as you voted for this. You can't start the ball rolling at the top of a hill, and then when it gets going and you can't stop it, now you want to be like ceasefire. But let's listen to the NATO left. And so if you haven't been listening to some of the NATO left. That's TYT, that's the Humanist Report, that's Rational National, that's Majority Report. There's been varying levels of support for Palestinians. And of course, the squad is giving them cover. They're giving them the green light that they can go hard at this, because the squad is apparently doing more than they would usually do. But let's listen to Anna and TYT here.
Biden's unwavering support toward Israel's brutal siege of Gaza has had a pretty massive impact on his support among Arab Americans, which is something incredibly concerning for a president who just barely won in the swing states. Now, a poll by the Arab American Institute shows that now just 23% of Arab Americans identify as Democrats due to Biden's handling of this war. Now, this is the first time a majority reported that they do not support Democrats since the Institute began tracking party identification in 1996. Now, don't get it twisted. They definitely do not side with the GOP either. Those identifying as independents rose to 31%, the highest it's ever been. And there are good reasons for why they just don't want to be identified as Democrats anymore. Look, we're not silly. We know that we know what Trump has done to our communities, says Amir Zar, the president of the Dearborn-based New Generation for Palestine. But when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, he continues, the policies are basically the same, except when Trump does it, you get some pushback from the Democratic Party. You know, because the partisan squabbles are way more important than doing the right thing. If Trump wants to do something, Democrats have an issue with it. But then they'll turn around and do the same thing when they're in power. It's pretty gross. And Arab Americans are realizing that now. Now, making matters worse for Biden in his quest for electoral victory is this. The same poll found that only 17% of Arab American voters say they will vote for Biden in 2024, a staggering drop from 59% in 2020. Now look, Biden obviously needs to win states like Michigan in order to be the victor of the general election. But things are not looking good because of the fact that there's a massive Arab.
There is a big Arab population in Michigan, and she's speaking to the point I made earlier about why the Democrats have made this pivot. They clearly didn't understand, or underestimated the support that their voting constituency has or had for the Palestinian plight. They clearly underestimated that. They went hard at Israel, thinking their Democratic voters and constituency would follow them along right behind them. Everybody, just like the Ukraine, just like they all fell in line in Ukraine. And that's just not what's happening. That's not what's happening. And they're writing article that's getting out in corporate media. And I read one yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago, The Nation. All these days kind of run together for me, or at least the episode. So, but let's go back to Anna, and then I'm going to go to a Humanist Report just to show you the differences. Not the differences, but how all of them are kind of going at Joe Biden.
Arab population residing in Michigan. The poll results are likely to increase concerns among Democrats about Biden's standing with Arab Americans heading into 2024, particularly in Michigan, where roughly 277,000 Arab Americans call home, and Biden won in 2020 by just 155,000 votes. So if they decide, we're gonna sit this one out, we're not gonna vote for the guy who has repeatedly justified the brutal bombardment of Gaza, which has led to thousands of innocent civilian deaths. Now, the smaller Arab population or the smaller Arab American populations in Pennsylvania and Georgia were also larger than Biden's margins of victory.
Now, I'm going to scroll back just a few seconds here. Let me play it and then I'll say what I want to say.
Thousands of innocent civilian deaths.
I don't want to go back too far, but I don't want to make sure I get all what she says.
Thousands of innocent civilian deaths. Now, the smaller Arab population.
Okay, I guess I got to go back a lot more. Here we go.
Not going to vote for the guy.
Yeah.
55,000 votes. So if they decide, we're going to sit this one out, we're not going to vote for the guy who has
this description
repeatedly
right
justified the brutal bombardment of Gaza, which has led to thousands.
The guy who's justified, this is not part of the article. This is Anna's description. And it speaks to what I was talking about. These are their voters, their most left voters who, when they said, I'm going to veto Medicare for all, they stayed. When they said, I'm going to give you student debt relief and they didn't get it, they stayed. When they watched as the federal right to an abortion was taken away, they stayed. But this Palestinian thing, they're like, I don't know about this one here. And some is varying levels of pushback. TYT, as far as in rhetoric, I would say their words have been a lot more forceful than some of the other ones on the NATO left, along with the Humanist Report. Their words have been a lot more forceful as far as pushback wise, but maybe Majority Report might have been the lightest, but let's continue.
Of innocent civilian deaths. Now, the smaller Arab population or the smaller Arab American populations in Pennsylvania and Georgia were also larger than Biden's margins of victory there. All three states are ones Biden flipped after Trump won them in 2016. And remember, Biden's very likely to go up against Trump again. And if he needs to rely on those Arab American votes in order to win the election, things are not looking good for him. And look, it is not just Arabs who are now speaking out against Joe Biden. Zogby, a decades-long member of the Democratic National Committee, notes that the shift away from the Democratic Party among Arab Americans can be seen across the board. Among the old and the young, the naturalized citizens and the native-born Americans, as well as among Catholics, Orthodox Christians, and Muslims. The community is feeling a certain sense of cohesion, and Joe Biden and Israel brought them together, he says. Additionally, a Data for Progress poll found that 66% of Americans support a ceasefire in Gaza because Americans are good people. And our government, unfortunately, increasingly is not representative of what we want. And I really hope that the global community understands that. Because as you see press conference after press conference featuring, various State Department officials providing cover for Israel's brutality, I don't want anyone to make the mistake in the global community that the United States consists of a giant population of people, the majority of whom are in favor of ethnic cleansing in the Gaza Strip. We are not. Again, 66% want a ceasefire. And it's important to also note that conflating these Americans with anyone who has made justifications for Hamas and its brutal and disgusting terrorist attacks is a liar. Two things can be true. You can be against what Hamas did, as I am, as many people in the United States happen to be, while also seeing what the IDF is doing in the Gaza Strip and standing against that as well. That's where I'm at. For all.
I may or may not get back to her if I have time. Depends on when Nick gets here. But let me get to the next video. This is the Rational National talking about John Kirby. So, is this Rational National? Yeah. My computer's slow. Yeah, here it goes.
Play the first one. This is 2 videos.
And so the good thing about The good thing about this video is we're going to be able to see not only Rational National, but Humanist Report and representatives from other, I think the guy in the bottom right is the Serfs or the Serfs. So other sort of progressive leaning, possibly Democratic voting people talk about this. So let's watch. These are the people that the Democratic Party is now pushing away.
Both of them are featuring the White House spokesman John Kirby. The first video you'll see is his response to what's happening in Gaza. The second video you'll see was his response to what's happening in Ukraine. Play the first one.
They're comparing videos between
war.
Gaza and Ukraine.
It is combat. It is bloody. It is ugly, and it's going to be messy. And innocent civilians are going to be hurt going forward. I wish I could tell you something different. I wish that wasn't going to happen, but it is going to happen, and that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it dismissible. It doesn't mean that we aren't going to still express concerns about that and do everything we can to help the Israelis do everything they can to minimize it. But that's unfortunately the nature of conflict.
Now watch his same response. What his response is to someone asking about what was happening in Ukraine back when that first started.
It's hard to look at what he's doing in Ukraine, what his forces are doing in Ukraine, and think that any ethical, moral individual could justify that. It's difficult to look at the It's difficult to look at some of the images.
It's John Kirby. Don't bat an eye when they told him about the deaths of Palestinian babies. He's trying to convince us that this is tearing him up. We don't have to watch that again. This is some Rotten Tomato Awards acting level right here. Like don't do this again, John. You don't do this often. Don't do this again. You're not good at it. When you're losing an argument, just start crying. Just start crying. When people stop buying your shit, just start crying. I guess that's the strategy that John Kirby is employing here. So let's see
what his forces are doing in Ukraine, and think that any ethical, moral individual could justify that. It's difficult to look at the It's difficult to look at some of the images and imagine that any well-thinking, serious, mature leader would do that.
What does your kids say when you come home? Hey, Dad, you're kind of putting it on there, kind of thick there, Dad. What is the people in your real life who know that you're acting? What do you say to your wife? How did I do today, darling? How did I do? Oh God. Yes, this is what it's almost an oxymoron, but one is a verb. It wasn't now. Psychopath crying. That's weird. That's suspicious. Terrible acting. Terrible acting. But that's for Ukraine. When Ukraine was in the position, right? According to people that compare it.
So I can't talk to his psychology, but I think we can all speak to his depravity.
Wow. The emotion for seeing people in Ukraine, white people.
Matt, can you send that to me, please?
I mean, it is unnerving how blasé.
Can you send me that shit? Can you send me that, Matt? It is shocking to them. Man, we are living in a clown show. Our government is a clown show. And I tell my wife all the time, when I watch some of what our government does, like that clip of him acting, I get an eerie deja vu feeling that I'm watching the Hunger Games. You know, in the Hunger Games, you know, is it a TV show? The game show, a war show, the guy that's real flamboyant, real loud, and real excitable on his show is a talk show. That's the sort of over the top sort of acting this was. And I just had that deja vu feeling of this is like the Hunger Games. We are living in a collapsing empire. Where psychopaths are crying to get you to support more weapons of war to kill people. But all right, let's go back a second and let's go.
Wow.
The emotion for seeing people in Ukraine, white people.
Matt, can you send that to me, please?
I mean, it is unnerving how blasé he was when asked about the Palestinian people's lives, and then how emotional he got. And I want to make it clear, I think the people in Ukraine and the people in Gaza and the West Bank are being victimized by an oppressor.
So he wants both. You should have the emotion for both, and I'll come back to that spot 222. What I want to make sure you saw we remember the first part, because remember how he acted about Ukrainian deaths. Now let's see how he acts about, let's remember or recall how he acted about Palestinian deaths.
War. It is combat. It is bloody. It is ugly, and it's going to be messy. And innocent civilians are going to be hurt going forward. I wish I could tell you something different. I wish that wasn't going to happen. But it is going to happen, and that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it dismissible. It doesn't mean that we aren't going to still express concerns about that and do everything we can to help the Israelis do everything they can to minimize it. But that's unfortunately the nature of conflict.
Now watch his same response. His response to someone asking about.
It is a good point. And now let's go back to where we were, 222.
This is not an attack on Ukrainian people. This is an attack on the U.S. government's position on one thing that flies in the face of their position on another.
Yep.
What Putin is doing in Ukraine, I saw the images. So disgusting. I've seen images of kids without faces come across my feed in Gaza.
That press conference after the hospital, I was like, I had to turn off the internet after that.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm never going to be able to unsee that uncensored footage of
Yeah.
them just literally in a pile of bodies of kids. I was like, even in horror movies, I don't see this shit, and this is real fucking life.
There's a video that stood out to me of this little girl. She was like 9, and I forgot what the caption was, but she was hugging her little siblings and grappling with the reality that she was their de facto mom now because both of their parents were killed. Just like 9, so she's trying to hold her little siblings.
Yeah,
and it's just.
The video I saw was a little girl too. She was running back in, and she said, "That's my mom. I can tell by her hair." And she was sitting down trying to, really wrap her mind about what her life was going to look like from that moment on. That's my mom. I know her by her hair. I know that's my mom. That was
So again, I wanted to pause, play it up until that point again, because we're seeing, I wanted the audience to hear what is bringing about the NATO left to step outside of the good graces of their bosses, the Democratic Party. And it sounds like the graphics that are coming out of Gaza. That's what they're talking about. That's what got Matt Bender in an uproar, and rightfully so. And so I did want to bring. There was another one, but I think I played it in the intro. Yeah, I played it in the intro. Yeah, I played it not in the intro, but the pre-show. Where Humanist Report is also reporting on this. He has done the most videos. The Humanist Report has done the most videos. So it is a contrast that the Bernie Sanders industrial complex have decided to go further left than Bernie. Now, they are farther as far left as us, but they have decided to go further left than Bernie. And to me, that is striking. And it is, I don't want to give them too much credit, but it is something that I can say, okay, I can at least say you're in the right direction. Is that tempered enough? You're in the right direction. One more step would be to say you should stop funding. And if you are going to fund it, I'm not going to support you. That would be the next step. But at least being in this place where you're able to say, you're able to go up into this point, that is a good thing. Now, I will insert a small bit of this other part from what's his name? Humanist Report, because it speaks to the part where I said earlier, the squad sort of have given them the green light to where they can go hard at this. This is the most I've seen these channels covered the squad in a long time. They weren't covering them with the strike break-in or anything like that. This is the most I've seen them cover them in a long time, and it's because they're on the opposite side of the corporate Democrats on Palestine, or the conditions of the Palestinians. Let's say that the conditions of the Palestinians, because I wouldn't say Palestine, because they still support the Iron Dome, as AOC said. They still support funding Ukraine. I'm sorry, funding Israel. So I wouldn't go that far, but I do want to show you. Oh yeah, let's play it here. I could play just the first 2 minutes to kind of close this down here.
Is there a threshold for you, and do you think there should be one for the United States government, at which the U.S. would say, let's hold off for a second in terms of civilian casualties? Is there a point at which you would start to?
Wow, he said no. He said no, motherfucker.
You just heard Republican Senator.
Let's move it slow. It's gonna play.
Lindsey Graham answered the question that many of us have asked. How many innocent civilians have to die until you call for a ceasefire? And the answer is as many as it takes. 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, 100,000. The number doesn't matter. We're unequivocally standing with Israel no matter what. They can bomb refugee camps, administer collective punishment, use white phosphorus. It doesn't matter how many innocents die. We are going to stand with Israel, even if that makes us complicit. Now, that answer is not surprising coming from a bloodthirsty warmonger like Lindsey Graham, but many liberals might be surprised to learn that this is the same stance as the Biden administration. They've explicitly stated that they're not drawing red lines for Israel, and that's not surprising considering that the White House press secretary dismissed calls for a ceasefire as repugnant and compared anti-Israel protesters, who, by the way, are calling for a ceasefire, to the Nazis who marched in Charlottesville in 2017. And the reason why they're saying this, the reason why it's permissible to just dismiss the suffering and slaughter of innocent Palestinians, is because our politicians and media have so thoroughly dehumanized Palestinians that the idea of an innocent Palestinian itself is literally being challenged. And that's not hyperbole.
I would encourage the other side to not so lightly throw around the idea of innocent Palestinian civilians, as is frequently said. I don't think we would so lightly throw around the term innocent Nazi civilians during World War II.
I mean, 50% of the people in Gaza are children, but we have to be really careful with our language here so as to not humanize the Palestinians, because we don't want to give Americans the impression that Palestinians are innocent in the middle of Israel's genocide. Otherwise, the public might start to question whether or not it's ethical for us to support them being wiped off the map. Or
now, like I said, and that's all you have to see, just to kind of tie this, put a bow on this segment, to kind of see three different. We went over TYT, we went to Humanist Report, where there was the left mafia, and now we're here on the Humanist Report, where you can see them going sort of hard, or a lot harder than before, at Joe on this issue. And it's precisely because of that person behind Mike in the back there, AOC, and Pramila Jayapal kind of was out front. Then Cori Bush was kind of in the background, but behind, and then now AOC, and now they're feeling more emboldened as more protests come out, as more stuff is happening. They're feeling more emboldened to come out and speak. So that is a good thing. So this is not, as I'm not doing this to say as to say kudos, but it is just to keep an eye on what's going on with the NATO left and how they're approaching this issue with Palestine and the squad and Joe Biden, and seeing how this is going to play out for next year. Like, could this stop some of them from actually going out and vote? And I don't mean just the ones, the popular podcasters. I'm talking about their audience. Could the people that are marching in the streets, because it has to be, some of them has to be Democrats, some of them has to be voting for Democrats. So, but is this issue a big enough issue to keep them from voting? I don't think it's big enough to get them to vote for Donald Trump, but is this a big enough issue to keep them from to keep them home? A lot of Arab Americans are saying, yeah, this is a big enough issue to keep me home. I read that article yesterday at The Nation. So I think we can close it there as Nick joins. What's up, Nick?
Hey, what's poppin', my friends, my family? It's good to join you guys for this RBN Live. Sorry I joined a little late, I had a few obligations. I didn't hear the last part of the clip there, but I watched a lot of the stream. And I seen the same thing from the Bernie left for years now. They are saying this now because young people are fed up because of the Israel-Palestine issue. They are making a calculated business decision, and they follow the direction of the squad. So the squad is critical, and they talk about Israel-Palestine. So that's why they talk about Israel-Palestine.
Right.
But when you look at how they talk about the issue, and I cover this as well, even when they cover like, oh man, Joe Biden is losing Palestinian support, they present it as a woe is me kind of thing. Like, oh no, this is going to cost the Democrats. Oh my God, Arab Americans are turning against Joe Biden because they feel like Joe Biden is promoting a genocide. Mm-hmm. And they have a neutral way of presenting this information. And I want you guys to ask yourself this question. At what point did any of the people interject their own opinion and say, yes, these people are correct for not voting for Joe Biden? The Arab Americans don't want to vote for Jim Crow Joe, and they are absolutely right. You know they never do that? They purposely never share their opinion on the issue because these same people, despite what they're saying now, they're going to vote for Joe Biden in 2024. I heard this. So heard this same song, same song and dance many times. Many times I heard this thing from these party progressives. Oh my God, Democrats suck on Israel. Democrats are pro-war. Then they support John Fetterman, who sucks on Israel. Like Humanist Report, Mike Figueredo, all those
him
people
in particular.
They love John Fetterman. You guys see how they just go with the political direction. Young people are very vocal about the issue. The squad gave them the A-OK to speak about this issue. So they're going to talk about this issue, and they're going to be passionate about it. At no point did they ever say, we should not vote for Joe Biden because he's sponsoring genocide. They said Arab Americans feel They feel and they believe that Joe Biden. No, at what point do you, as a political commentator, take it upon yourself to educate your audience? And not that Arab Americans feel Joe Biden is complicit with a genocide, it's that Joe Biden is complicit with a genocide. And there's a difference between RBN and a lot of these channels, which turns a lot of the boutique managerial class off of RBN because they prefer more of a neutral head who won't be too emotional. Talk about the news right down the line. I want you to tell me exactly what the mainstream media said, but say it in the edgier way. You know what I mean? The way I present that story is Arab Americans are pledging not to vote for Joe Biden. What the hell took them so long? Why the hell would anyone vote for the architect who destroyed the Middle East, who destroyed Iraq, and have been an extreme anti-Arab politician his entire life? This is what you're supposed to educate your audience on. Tell them why the Arab Americans who won't vote for Joe Biden, why they are correct. No, you got to just, they feel this way.
They never give an opinion. They never give an opinion.
Yeah, see, and I see through that. I don't think, like, it's well, you can make the argument. Let me phrase this way. You can make the argument that their political neutrality is born from privileged, because like David Figueredo, David, what's the fucking name? The dude do Rational Natural, David, whatever fucking his name is.
David Dole.
David Dole, yeah, he's from Canada. You know what I mean? All these people have been wealthy millionaires. They've been making these people got on YouTube before they changed the monetization. CJ, these people was filthy rich because of the Bernie media industrial complex. These people are not feeling our struggle the way we do. That's why they do this more neutral commentating tone. Oh man, this is what the Arab Americans feel about Biden. And at what point do you draw your line? Like, okay, we not voting for Joe Biden because of this. Educate people why they're correct. Anyway, that's my initial thoughts. CJ, I'll pass to you. There's
I'll get to some announcements, and then I could do the Joe story, and then we'll get to the Kamala story, just so you don't have to be thrown in and start a segment already. I'll let you do the Kamala, but I mean the Joe, not the Joe Biden story, the Morning Joe story I have. Remember, I told you so.
Yeah, so we actually it would be a good idea. We can do the Kamala story.
You want to do that one first?
Yeah, just because it fits in with what you're talking about right now.
Okay.
Oh shit, where's my?
Let me read some announcements here. I don't think
I just got here. Let me pull my notes up because you just covered how the progressive left reacting to Biden potentially losing this election due to him supporting genocide, and we reported out how Arab Americans are turning against Joe Biden. So the next story is how Democrats and how Joe Biden is trying to react to this. So we'll cover that next. So let me get my notes up. I just got here and then
yeah. All right. So this comment here, this one from Janice, they are grifter manufacturing consent for fascism. They see the movement rebuilding over this issue and are using our rhetoric to pretend to be on our side so they can redirect the energy for election. Spot on, Janice. And there's another one coming in. Go ahead.
One of my friends showed me this screenshot because Olayemi blocked us, where like Olayemi is still kind of like wink and nah, like, oh man, this is horrible that this is gonna call Trump the election, and like she's like still pro Biden and saying, oh, this is gonna be bad if Biden don't get together, Democrats gonna lose, and that is their language. Their language isn't our language. What we're saying, fuck, if Joe Biden lose because of that shit, thank God. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Fuck you guys. You guys deserve to lose forever. What they are saying with the Olayemi level, what Mike Figueredo, what they're saying, oh no, Biden is losing Arab support. That's the tone. They're saying, oh no, he's about to lose because of it. We like, hell yeah, he's about to lose because of it. We reporting the same thing, but with a different message, if that makes sense. But go ahead, CJ. I apologize.
It's like when the slave owner's house is burning down, we're asking for the strong wind, and they're the ones going, oh no. I get it. Yeah. I put that in a historical context, but let me read this super chat right here. This one from Zachary. I think that's how you say your name. Progressive intellectual Eric Weinstein on trigonometry, and that's trigger with a T, trigonometry podcast with Sam Harris said Gaza isn't occupied, should play react to the clip of it, Free Palestine, I believe is what he was going to say there. But Sam Harris, I guess that's a podcast I would have to check out. I don't think I've heard of it. Maybe I've seen a clip and I just didn't know. The name Sam Harris sounds familiar. Was he the guy that was on Joe Rogan recently? I think he might have been on Joe Rogan.
He's the what's the best? I guess author, fake intellectual, right? He was one of those people that like justify the U.S. foreign policy and the war on terror because he'd be like, "Oh my God, look how Arab treat their women." He's a cultural imperialist.
Oh,
so he'd be like Muslims are disgusting. Like, and I remember watching these debates when I was younger. Like, and I was extremely secular. This is to when I was like getting away from religion. I was like, man, look at all these crazy religious people. What the hell are they doing? But Sam Harris and Bill Maher are like very particularly disgusting because they would take the flaws of another culture and then they will use that to justify U.S. imperialism and state violence. What we call culture.
Bill Maher does do that.
And I know Sam Harris is probably known for other stuff, but that's all I know him for. Like that's the only thing. Like, if you did that, that's all I know you for. Like he does other stuff, but I just know him as the genocide enabler, the apologist for the like.
Oh, so I googled his name. And what it lists as his occupation is American philosopher and
he a big Russian
neuroscientist. A neuroscientist, yeah.
So there's always these people that like branch out into politics.
I don't know
and then
him.
they just spread shit lib pretty much propaganda, and they think they're intellectuals. Sam Harris is one of those people. From what I know from him, he's one of the big Western chauvinists. He believed that the height of society is what we are at right now. You know, that delusional mindset. He believed that European Western liberalism is the height of enlightenment. And that is like completely counter to my entire ideology. If you don't know, my entire work is about highlighting how Sam Harris' Western chauvinistic point of view is wrong. They view the West as the height of morality, the height, like literally Western chauvinists. Like I know a lot of people use that term a lot. But Sam Harris that's his job. He's known as the intellectual Western chauvinist. I'm here to explain to you why the West is so good, why Israel's so good, why censorship is good, why Russiagate is real, why we need mandates. Like he's the guy he's not like he don't do it the same way MSNBC and Fox did. That's why he got an audience. He like carved a lane for himself. Like he do it in a different way that has some sort of appeal where he like worked backward from his conclusion and speak in an intellectual way. The century said the United States is always good. You know what I mean? And everything that's going bad in our society because people trying to change United States from where it is. That's what I know from Sam Harris. And I'm not saying I know a ton of him, but once I hear stuff like that from you, I'm like, all right, I'm checked out. There's no need for me to hear anything about the guy because I heard his take about Muslims, Israel, the war on terror, and after that, I'm like, all right, nothing. You got nothing else to offer me.
Yeah, I just googled him, and this is one of the articles. Sam Harris canceling Stanford students over Israel makes sense. So I'm out on him. I don't need to know nothing else.
Of course, he said that.
I'm out on him.
The only thing, the few things I actually know from him is like statements I've seen on Jimmy about him. He was a big man. He was a big mandate guy. He's a big NATO left guy. And he's one of the people that advocated censorship. And there was a lot of people in his audience that was like turned off from that for whatever. I think he may have been like a free speech person at one point and switched. And then because of Russiagate, because of Trump, he was advocating censor people on Twitter. And I remember I seen a statement where Jimmy roasted him for that. He was a big mandate person as well, pushing mandates. So it makes sense. Now he like went full-fledged authoritarian. That's the funniest thing about Sam Harris. And I'm trying to give you a rundown from a little bit I know about Sam Harris. He's one of those people, CJ, that criticize Arab cultures and Muslims for being authoritarian. That he's American democracy, Western society is enlightened democracy with freedoms, but Arab, Muslim countries, African countries, and Asian countries like the DPRK and China are deeply authoritarian. That's the mindset of Sam Harris. Meanwhile, Sam Harris is for mandates. He's for censoring people. Like, he's the most rank authoritarian, and God knows what his position on the police state is. I'm sure he probably said some crazy shit about defund the police and all that stuff. He probably a big police state supporter. You know what I mean? So I love that people like Sam Harris exist because he proves everything I say correct. Like, these Western chauvinists, every negative thing they project on Arab countries, South American countries, African countries, or socialist countries who they call authoritarian, that's who they are. They are the rank authoritarians. Now, I don't want to give you guys a lecture here, but why is China not authoritarian and we are? Because China got a mandate from their people. Everything that these socialist countries came from a mandate because of revolution. Cuba does everything due to the mandate from the Cuban Revolution.
Yeah.
Everything Nicolas Maduro, his party does, came from a mandate from the people. What the fuck does our government mandate come from? We got people who've been in Congress for 40 plus years, like Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, who we can't get rid of. We got unelected bureaucrats like Anthony Blinken, swamp monsters we can't get rid of. So even if you have criticism of other people's culture, if their government is working in a way that's reflected of the will of the people, and I'm gonna give you guys a good example if I'm not explaining it right? I strongly disagree with China's drug policy personally. You know what I mean? We have a different culture, CJ. The drug war in our country was used to imprison and destroy our people. There is no reason for any black or brown person to be for the drug war, seeing how the United States weaponized the police state against our community. That's why I'm like, no government should ever have the power to ban drugs. But do I judge China and call them authoritarian for them having a ban on drugs? No, because their culture is different. The reason why China banned drugs, not only do they have the mass majority of the population on their side, inherently not making it authoritarian, because the West weaponized opium against their people. You have the West that weaponized drugs and destroy their communities using drugs. You guys see how there's a completely different backstory? So to me, it makes sense if you're someone from China and you guys were victims of the opium wars. You have all these people that imported drugs to destroy your population. Of course, you as a population want to control and get rid of drugs. I'm not for that, right? But that's not authoritarian because you're going by the will of the people. Meanwhile, in this country, it's a completely different situation where majority of the people want legalized marijuana, but we don't get it. You guys see the difference?
Yes,
China
sir.
as a culture is anti-drug. So they govern in an anti-drug way. America as a country loves drugs and always loved drugs. And we love people because of that. That's how, and I'll pass I went on many rant, but that's how I define authoritarianism. When you're acting on the will of the people or not. Or are you acting on the will of the people? In the United States, you got 70% of the population who want Medicare for all. Guess what we don't got, CJ? We don't got no fucking Medicare for all. That's the height of authoritarianism. You have 80% of Democrats that want a ceasefire. We don't got no damn ceasefire. That's authoritarianism. In China, they support the Chinese Communist Party. So they got the Chinese Communist Party in their policies. They support the policies. And whenever they stepped out of line, like they stepped out of the line with the COVID policies, what happened? China protested, hit the streets. America like, yes, China's being destabilized. Look at these protests. And then the Chinese Communist Party like, all right, I guess you guys are right. We done roll back our mandates and our COVID policies. Then the West was like, what? A government actually reacted to the protest in the will of their people? So I actually stopped my sermon there. I lecture on authoritarianism all the time. But you guys get my mindset. But go see, I'll pass to you. I don't want to.
Yeah, no. We're gonna move into the Kamala segment, and then Kamala, because there's a lot. I didn't realize that went so viral, Nick, until I got up today, and I'm like, what? A Jamu? This person? Everybody was talking about this video from Kamala Harris and what it says about the pivot and the pressure that has been put on by all of us, and how they're pivoting. So I'm ready for that Kamala segment.
Yeah.
We'll get to the morning.
The reason I said I
Joe,
want to do this,
or I can do the morning Joe. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
whatever you want to
do. The
do.
reason why I said I want to do this one next because it fit well with the last segment.
Okay.
Right. So,
for sure.
You gotta know politicians don't actually like care about what people think if you're going to vote for them, right? That's why That's why even when the Bernie left say something good, I'm like, nigga, who gives a fuck? You're gonna vote for him. That's my reaction to everything they say now. And people think I'm an asshole. You people like, fuck Joe Biden. Can't believe he funded ICE more. Even let's say the ones who get it better than most. Fuck Joe Biden. I can't believe he fund Nazis in Ukraine. That's better than the average progressive. But let's say you're one of those people. But then you still vote for Joe Biden. That means fucking nothing. You can make any podcast you want. You can go on corporate media and criticize Democrats. As long as the end of the day, your message is that you and people should vote for them. So when politicians make decisions, they're not looking at your Twitter post. They're not looking at public opinion. They're looking at the amount of people that will vote for them. In a poll, they show that there was like 58% support of Arab Americans, and it dropped to 17% for the Democrats.
Yeah, never seen that before.
never seen anything like that. Like CJ, you guys know that I have fantasies about that in the Black community. Like I will literally like daydream. Like, man, can you imagine if one day we finally just fucking woke up, got rid of all the shit liberty in our community, and we dropped from 75% Democrat support to like 30%. Nigga, if that happened, that would be crazy. That is what just happened to the Arab American. That is what just happened to Muslims in America, and I gotta say I'm quite jealous because these are things I fantasize about. I know you guys are going through tragedy and trauma, but our community has been through quite a bit of tragedy and trauma as well. So I am jealous that you guys are starting to wake up, and a lot of the boomer, liberal-minded people in your community woke up before many of our did. You've seen an increase in uptick, but these raw numbers is making Democrats panic. like I haven't seen Joe Scarborough do one of those smug Trump is fuck rants in a while. Like, he's been scaling back on those. I noticed. Yeah, and this go to the segment you just did. That's why I want to play this one where you have Mike Figueredo saying, "Oh no, but this is gonna cost Biden." You know, that's their coverage. Oh no, Biden's losing Arab Americans. Right now, look at this. So, despite committing a genocide on the Palestinian people, they have a new strategy, CJ. Because they have a way that's going to make people overlook a genocide where they're arming a country that is bombing kids. So here's the headline. I don't spoil it too much. The White House is working on a strategy to combat Islamophobia. I guess Joe Biden, I know you committed a genocide, but man, thank God you did some virtual signaling bullshit. You know, all those dead Gaza kids I seen on the internet that is burned into my subconscious that gave me PTSD. Yeah, fuck that. You did this fucking virtual signaling bullshit to combat Islamophobia. I'm all in now. Is that what they think is going to happen?
And to your point earlier, you're jealous because the Black community is not doing that, because this does work on the Black community. You ever heard of Juneteenth?
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does.
Yeah, we're funding the police, but here's Juneteenth. That's an even trade. What? No,
dude,
but yeah, to your point.
That, but it's true. I'm so sad that you said that.
Your point.
I'm sad that you said that, and I can't say you full of shit for saying it.
That's true.
Because that is fucking true, man. God damn it. Like, because Muslims always think they getting racial to death. I'm gonna show you guys a few tweets. Then not only is Biden and Kamala getting racial by this, any blue check liberal that even mentioned this in a positive light is getting racial by Muslims, because the Muslims are like, how dare you have the audacity to think that this is gonna be enough for us? Meanwhile, those tap dancing Black boomers in the Black Congressional Caucus, they get a Juneteenth bill. They're like, oh, I guess I forgive the money going to the police. I guess I forget what you did to the Haitians. I forgive cop cities. Where are my tap dancing at? You guys don't understand how much disdain I have for these motherfuckers. I have more disdain for the people in the Black Congressional Caucus than I do anyone else in politics generally, because as I mentioned before, there's nothing worse than betrayal. There's nothing worse than infiltrating coons that sell out their community for state violence, right? we see a lot of those people coming from China and Iran on CNN and MSNBC speaking about why Iranian people and Chinese are so evil. I'm an Iranian immigrant. I'm gonna tell you why Iran is so evil. I'm a Chinese immigrant. I'm gonna tell you why China is so evil and the United States is amazing. They are the same type of people as the Uncle Toms and Black Progressive Caucus I'm talking about. I hate those people more than anybody.
Yeah, me too.
You know that the Iranian refugee that comes to America who write a book talking about why we should have sanctions on Iran. The worst people. I hate those people. You know, remember what's her fucking name? Park Kim, whatever her name. She was the one that came, the DPRK North Korean person who fled, and she spread all this bullshit about North Korea to the point where
I don't know her name.
She's like a laughing stock now. Do anyone know her name? I'm blanking on her name. Something Park Kim. But the establishment used to listen to her all the time, and then she told like all these easily disprovable stories. Now they stopped relying on her because she was lying. Like she
I think I know the picture. I think because the story, I just didn't know that was her name. The story you're telling me sounds familiar.
Yomingi Park. So Yomingi Park, that Iran refugee we covered a few days ago that was on Morning Joe, the Black Congressional Caucus, Hakeem Jeffries, they do the same thing. I know I went on a little side tangent, but they do the same thing, man. They are the most disgusting people in humanity. They sell their own people out for the white colonizers, for the most evil empire of all time. They want a comfortable life, so they sell out their people for them. It's disgusting. Anyway, let me move on. This is from the White House. Today, President Biden and Vice President Harris announcing that they're developing the first ever U.S. national security strategy to counter Islamophobia. Our administration has been clear. There is no place for hate in America or anyone. So I'm going to play this clip from Kamala Harris, but now there's something that was on my mind because I saw a few people that think they're radical. Honestly, I don't think they think they're liberal, CJ, when they say this. I've seen black people say this. You guys see how fast Joe Biden is to put together an anti-Islamophobia hate bill? You guys see how fast Joe Biden was to put an anti-Asian hate bill? Why can't Black America get an anti-Asian hate bill? I know you've seen that rhetoric.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
Right? Why the fuck do you guys want Biden and Democrats to put a virtue signaling bill together for you guys? I never understood it. Like people always say that. Dude, you have black people. Like,
why isn't he trying to dupe us too? Why isn't he putting together a plan to dupe us too, man?
Yeah, come on. Why you guys not duping us, man? Why can't you give us some crumbs? When I've seen so many people say, I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. What are you guys talking about? Make a demand or shut the fuck up. Like, you guys understand when they do these hate bills, oh, we're going to have a bill to fight against hate against the community. What are they doing, you morons? They're increasing the police state. You got Negroes who think they are radical. They're like, Joe Biden, why can't you increase the police state on our behalf? I don't want to call anybody out by name because I honestly don't think they're bad people, CJ. I think they're trying to do something for us. Fight. That's their way to try to fight for the community, but they're just misguided. Why can't you guys give us a police state bill? Guys, we don't want this. I'm telling you guys right now, we do not want the fuck this is. Because Muslims are calling this out because this is pondering bullshit. This is pondering bullshit that no one should want for their community. So in order to whitewash and make people forget about their genocide of Palestinians, they're going to increase the police state on their behalf? Like, I want you guys to seriously think about what they're proposing here. And this is why I start despising liberalism, CJ, because liberals just go along with the shit, not a thought, not a care in the world. Even black liberals that'll go along with it. But feel free to interrupt. Here's Kamala. I'll play her video. This is not a long segment, CJ.
Yeah, it's not that long.
They're coping on this. So let's play the video and then we can wreck a little bit more.
Our nation was founded on the fundamental.
Gee, this 3 minutes. I don't think we can watch the whole thing, but I'll play a little bit so you guys can see this. I didn't know it was that long. I don't know why I saw 1 minute. But
now let's be clear. Let's be clear. Nick is not saying, I don't know if we can play it because we don't have time. He's talking about stomaching this. That's what he's talking about.
TJ, absolutely. I don't know why. I guess my brain malfunctioned, but for some reason I thought it was a 1 minute video. Dude, 3 minutes of Kamala Harris talking about this. Jesus Christ. Let's see how long we get into it. Let's see. This you are on point. I cannot imagine watching 3 minutes of Kamala speaking.
It was founded on the fundamental principle that all people should have the freedom to live, to worship, and to be without fear of violence or persecution.
Unless
person
it's violence against by the United States government and the people that they're funding. Like what? I'm sorry. I know this is gonna be argued. I know it will be. Like, how do people not hear this and be disgusted? Imagine if there was an anti-black hate bill, CJ, and it's just like we want to stand against people who wage violence against black people. I'll blame Kamala Harris, who's more responsible for violence against black Americans than you, Senator Harris. Anyway, so I'll let it play. It's gonna be very hard. I'm gonna let it play just a little bit.
To live safe from violence, hate, and bigotry. And for those reasons and so many more, President Joe Biden and I have a duty not only to keep the people of our nation safe, but to condemn unequivocally and forcefully all forms of hate. Since we took office, President Biden and I have fought to uphold that duty. Over the past decade, America has seen a rise in attacks on houses of worship. So in response, we expanded funding.
You want to know who's been attacking houses of worship? Israel, when they've been launching their raids on mosques, they've been doing they escalated at least for the last 2 or 3 years. They always been doing it, but attacks have been increasingly escalating. That's why our Ben and our allies are like the only people that will remind people that 2022 was the deadliest year ever for the Palestinians. You had IDF that murdered countless children. You had countless Palestinians being displaced last year, but people think the war started October 7th. Like, as I said before, at the risk of getting in trouble, if any government or any form of government did to my people what the Israelis did to the Palestinians in my lifetime, I would be down for some Hamas style shit too. I am not afraid to say that. Anyone who says otherwise, you are lying. You are lying. Oh, so let's say there's no parallel example I can do to make sense. But let's just say a shadow government forcibly evict your mama. Let's say you had a small child and then Israel bombed and killed that child. And then you gonna say, we don't have the right to resist using armed resistance. Nigga, you would not say that. And I challenge anyone.
That's not American culture, Nick. That's not American culture. American culture is John Wayne shoot 'em up. American culture is if you get on my property, I have the right to take you out. So this is literally American culture, but they want us to act like for Palestinians, it's a different story.
Yeah, it's obvious to people now. Before, I'm glad like most people take this as gospel. Now I've seen Glenn, big shout out to Glenn and a lot of I saw Jimmy as well. They've been going after they've been going after these right wingers. You know what I mean? They've been going after these right wingers that like pretend there was for free speech, there was against using identity politics, and they've been calling them out as the hypocrites as they are. Like, right, and Glenn been going really aggressively hard.
I saw that. Yeah,
because now people are realizing these people.
I covered
are frauds.
it yesterday. One of them.
Yeah, everyone's realizing these people are frauds. But what I always said is that the populist right and these people, they believe in just white identity politics. When they say give me liberty or give me death, they don't mean that for me and you, CJ. They don't mean that for the Palestinian. When they say the Second Amendment right is here for us to resist government tyranny, are they talking about the hood, CJ? You think they talking about Muslims and Palestinians? They will never admit this out loud. But when they say this shit, when they say the Second Amendment stands for tyranny, give me liberty or give me death, they are saying only for white people. And they know it's implied. They don't have to say it, but it's heavily fucking implied. And this is stuff that black and brown people have been calling out for day fucking one. But I'm glad people are realizing that people are frauds now, right? Because I'm saying stuff that even people who are on the right side of this issue, CJ, are not saying. But you know what I mean? Like people on the right side of this issue, like, well, I still condemn Hamas. Nigga, why would I condemn them for doing the same shit I would do in their scenario? You know what I mean? It makes no fucking sense. I'm sorry, I be careful because I want to be careful.
That's true. That's true.
I move on. I'll play just a little bit more.
Yes, YouTube, we do not condone any violence.
I didn't mean anything I said.
We're speaking satirically. This is not at all literal.
That was sarcasm, satire.
Yes.
Probably fucks. Anyway, let's play a little bit of this. And we almost done. It's not a long statement. I'll pass to you.
To protect houses of worship from violence. After a surge in hate during the pandemic, in particular anti-Asian hate, President Biden signed the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act to improve the reporting of hate crimes and to ensure hate crimes are investigated quickly and thoroughly. Earlier this year.
Investigated by who? You know, so this is one of the things that the dumb left and liberals don't think about with these anti-hate bills. The fuck you talking about? These bills are directly trying to expand the police state. And progressive-minded people would cheer for them. You have people who are black who think they're radical. Like these black people will protest against Cop City, CJ. You would have these black liberal-minded people. They'll protest Cop City. Then they're like, give us an anti-hate bill against the black community. I don't want to go too hard on those people because I get what you're trying to do. I get it. You're trying to get.
They're misguided. They're misguided.
It's just misguided. And not like, and not the rage I have for a Zionist. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to project that anger, but it's just they've been misled by the POC class into thinking these anti-hate bills are supposed to be good. They're absolutely not. They're absolutely not. They always used to expand the police state. Every single one.
They're radicals. They're radicals who buy into the idea of reform and not revolution. When we used to have radicals that bought into the idea of revolution and not reform. But go ahead. We can get back to the.
Yeah, we can get to the bow end of the segment. Here's President Biden and bro, these tweets. Oh Jesus Christ! Gee, I didn't even see them. Jesus Christ! Like my tweet. I'm never gonna ratio the president, but if I get 1,000 likes compared to 15, that's good.
Oh, what did you say? I can't see it from here.
He got 12,000 comments, only 15. That's a President Biden getting ratio to oblivion by what I assume is obviously a lot of angry right wingers, but a ton of Muslims, Arab Americans calling this shit out as well. Excuse me. We can't stand by while hate against Muslims and those wrongfully perceived to be Muslims, including Arabs and Sikhs, are given oxygen. President Biden, who do you think enabled this kind of hate? Who do you think doing the most violence against Arab people globally right now? Yeah, we know Israel pulling the trigger, but who arming Israel? Who protecting Israel? Who is shielding Israel? Who gave Israel the AOK to commit this slaughter of the Palestinian people? As they were saying, CJ, they was going on a PR campaign like, yeah, nigga, we about to slaughter some kids. We about to fucking bomb some hospitals.
Yeah, they was telling us.
There are no red lines. Do whatever you got to do, sir. And now they coming out like, oh, man, we got to stand for Muslim Americans because of the fallen poll numbers. Now do you guys see why it's inherently ridiculous to even want these bills? Because let's say we get what black liberal radicals want to happen. But they're like, why can't we get an anti-black hate bill? Okay, you know what Biden and Democrats going to do? They say, we know you're upset about Cop City. I know you guys are upset that we're not getting you reparations. I know you guys are upset that healthcare still sucks for you guys. The cities are still bad. But hey, at least we gave you an anti-black hate bill. Why do y'all even want that? Anyway, this is what I said here. He said silence is complicity. We won't be silent.
Man, it's so transparent.
Jesus Christ. So they getting racial to death. And I said this. I think this is a pretty good tweet in terms of numbers. I said this is a transparent, sad attempt to win the Muslims back over who turned on you after supporting the genocide of Muslims, which is so obvious. And that's not like a brilliant tweet of mine, but that's so obvious that I got over 1,000 likes because it's so transparent. I just read a few of my base replies here.
Wow. See, I didn't know any of this sort of backlash that they were getting, but it's good to know.
Oh, bro.
It's good to know that people aren't buying this shit. Like, what the fuck is this garbage? Especially the community that they're trying to fool. Especially it's good that the Muslim community is not buying it. But go ahead.
But you want to know what I'm noticing now scrolling this? Another reason why buying on oh look, this is another example. I didn't pick this up when I first saw this tweak. I saw it early. Another reason buying in is racial. He getting racial by Zionists, CJ.
Wow.
This Zionists and Biden. So
They're
he getting
mad.
racial by the left. People like me call him buying out for this. He getting racial by. I saw some people on the right tagging
That's
him
true.
for this. Because people on the
Fox
right.
Fox News don't think they said that he is kowtowing to Hamas because because of the nice things. And Nick, this is before today. They thought he was saying too many nice things, just acknowledging. They were saying he's going too far.
Yeah.
And then he's acting like it's
So he's getting attacked by
no.
everybody. Now he's getting attacked by the Zionists too. 'Cause look, there's a few tweets, but just for a second time I read this one. They say Jewish students are being intimidated and threatened on school campuses all over the country, but Islamophobia clown shit. That's essentially what he's saying with the emoji there. He's essentially saying putting the clown emoji next to Islamophobia. You guys see the psychotic nature of Zionists here and how they just make sure show me the evidence. The same way that the dead Palestinian babies are forever scarred in my soul, CJ. I want to see the video evidence of Jewish students being harassed, right? I've seen the video. In fact, I may pull it up later or maybe tomorrow, where a Jewish woman slapped a 16-year-old boy. There's another video of a Zionist headbutting a pro-Palestinian protester. There's more evidence of Zionist violence. There have been reports of Israelis raiding Palestinian communities and committing violence on them since October 7th. Everything the Zionists say is projection. But anyway, I don't have to spend too much time on reactions. I just thought that was interesting, seeing some of the new tweets I didn't see. So he getting hammered by Zionists, Jewish people that getting upset because he dared do anything for the Palestinians. Fox News obviously being unhinged, tying them to Hamas. And then they're the only people who have the smart critique that is us. You know what I mean? That this is obviously a virtue signaling ploy. Like, are Republicans and conservatives truly stupid enough to think that Biden really cares about Hamas and appeasing these people that he's sponsoring the genocide of? So everyone in this equation is dumb except us, if I have the ego to say so myself on this issue. But CJ, I'll pass to you for your next segment.
The same thing started my closing remarks, and I'll let a couple of people say it because I got a couple of reactions I just wanted to go over too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So there's quite a few people who actually chimed in on this, and I call it the Kamala pandering story. We have Glenn Greenwald. I'm sorry, not that one. Right here. Vijay Prasad and the Palestinians. So he's saying, where's this for the Palestinians, this effort? And even Nathan J. Robinson, like Shitlib, says extremely cynical move. Arab American voters turning on Biden because refusal to call for a halt to the bombing of Palestinians.
Dude, I'm gonna be cynical as fuck. I'm sorry, guys.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, CJ, but I'm gonna be a little bit cynical here. A lot of these Biden voting progressives are using this Israel-Palestine issue to rehabilitate their image.
Yes.
And I'm glad you understand what I said, so I don't have to add that much to this. But you guys enabled this by voting for them. I think you guys get what I'm saying, so I don't want to rant on it. But you guys know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. These people who voted for Joe Biden, who I told them about John Fetterman, this was my red line issue years ago. Why you guys think I voted for Joe Stein in 2016? Like, one of the reasons why I regretted my voting in Barack Obama in 2012, because in 2012, I knew nothing about the Israel-Palestine issue. Like, once I learned about the show, hell no, I would never vote for these people. So that's always been my red line. And now you got these white leftist progressives that now trying to money, monetize, and get popularity on pretending they care about this issue that was never a red line for them. I was talking to Vosh and many other people about why Joe Biden's support of Israel, him having Anthony Blinken as his foreign policy advisor, is enough for me not to vote for them. It wasn't for them. So now they want to rehabilitate their image as a genocide enabler.
Nick, this is what imitations know what to do. They know to study the authentic people and then just regurgitate it and take out the substance. This is actually, in my opinion, what the boutique left does all the time. This is all they do. These
same people will just talk. They just supported Marianne Williamson.
Exactly.
Marianne Williamson used to say stuff like Israel had the right to defend himself. And remember when I had a conversation with Bree, and Bree was confused, like, why do you guys think Marianne Williamson not good on Israel? I'm like, bro, she literally said Israel don't have the right to defend himself. She's against BDS. And now these same people are like, oh my God, you can't do these things. You can't say Israel has the right to defend himself. I'm like, you guys just supported Marianne. But now I guess it's a great time for a lot of these people to rehabilitate themselves. But I want you guys to know, RBN was there first. Like, people thought I was unreasonable for years because this always been my red line. Whenever any politicians bring up CJ, when what I do? I Google their name, I Google Israel. As soon as I heard about John Fairman enough, first thing I did, John Fairman, Israel. That's what I always do. Marianne Williamson, what about, let me actually look into her. I think she's good on reparations, all that stuff. Remember I told you guys, I had an initial good impression of her because I heard she was good on reparations and she fake progressing. And then I'm like, let me see what she said on Israel. Then, and
it was a disaster. It was a disaster.
And now these people pretending that this is their red line issue, that, man, you're morally reprehensible if you don't stand for the Palestinians. The progressive left been sold the Palestinians out.
Nick, but this is what works for that audience. I sold out. Now I have an issue that brings you guys back. And the audience keeps going through the same emotion. Man, I thought you was dead. Oh, now they're back good. Now I'm back. This is just a cycle that they go through. But let me get through these other ones. He says, okay, instead of ceasefire, how about a useless symbolic anti-hate initiative? You mean Nathan J. Robinson is pointing out how this is going to be a useless symbolic initiative? Something we point out all the time when you're trying to get us to support these clowns. Then you got Chuck Modi that chimed in, but I want to go to Ajamu and somebody who we consider an elder. He says this person has no dignity and no self-respect. That is why when Biden announces that he will not run, the Democrats will skip over her. So he's basically saying this is the Negro servant. She's coming out playing this role, being the face of this rollout of this nonsense, when she's going to be when they would just throw her under the bus under normal circumstances. And I think that's my final word. We can move to this next segment that I have. I want to make sure we cover while you're here. You have got to see this. I hope you have not seen Morning Joe today, or at least this part that I'm going to show you, because this shit is pretty wild. Anytime they have Donny Deutsch on, you know this shit is about to get off the rails.
I haven't seen that one. The only thing I've seen today, they had an interview with Ron DeSantis, apparently.
Yeah, not that one.
I've been thinking about doing this. I may not, because there's Ron DeSantis was on with Joe Scarborough, and they had a conversation about Israel, Ukraine. It was like, is this supposed to be the liberal talking to the conservative? Because I hear two fucking fascists having a conversation here. Anyway, I may break that down later, but go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, so they preface it like this. Donny Deutsch goes on Morning Joe. He is the featured guest, and I don't understand why they keep bringing him on. I don't know who he's there to pander to. What audience is he there to grasp? I don't get him. But this entire segment is just pure cult.
Whenever I see Donny Deutsch, whenever I see people like Donny Deutsch, I always wonder who their daddy is. You know what I mean? Like where their
you don't know who Donny Deutsch? You don't know where his money come from, right? You know that's where his money come from.
What?
His daddy made the millions. His daddy died and left him.
Of course. You didn't know
that? I thought you knew that. Yeah,
I was about to say.
He comes from. That is all where he has nothing else to say about him. That's it. His dad
Oh,
had a
that's
$1
fucking
million
weird.
advertising company. His daddy died and left him the business, and he sold it. And that's how
Oh
he got
my
his money.
God, bro. You could not make my point better.
That's it.
Because I actually did not know that. Because the point I was making is that if you guys wonder how Barry Weiss and all these people get these media jobs, it's connected to generational wealth. Their dad knew someone. Then they're like, oh, let's bring the son on. Let's get their son a job. And all of a sudden they're known as a commentator. And that's exactly what Donny doing. I need to look more into this. I'll guarantee you that's how
You're
Donny
gonna want to do it.
is.
You're gonna want to do a episode on him. It's gonna be so funny to you.
Oh, I had no idea about any of
ridiculous.
this. But anyway, let's continue. I don't want to hijack the segment.
But let's listen. Let me know when you want to stop. It might be quite a few places. There's about 8 minutes that we're gonna cover here.
Israel is completely destroyed. In an interview with Lebanese television, the official warned Hamas would replicate those horrific attacks, stating, quote, Israel is a country that has no place on our land. So, Congressman, there you have it. For people calling for a ceasefire, this is what the Israelis are up against.
Yeah, that's exactly right. By the way, I hear...
Now, you notice how he misses the part where he says, you have no place on our land. Yeah. So, and when people, you notice when they say Israel has a right to exist, they are saying an incomplete sentence on purpose, Nick. Israel has a right. Always say, it exists where? Finish your sentence. You mean exist in Palestine? No, you don't have a right to exist there. Yeah. Do you have a right to be in existence? I guess. But to you to say you have a right to be at somebody else's house is absurd. Is absurd. But let's let me. I don't want to sidetrack. Let me play this here.
About the UN saying a lot about this. Where's the UN been in Ukraine? Where have they been in talking about the Russian attacks in Syria? The Russians repeatedly hitting hospitals there. Look, I hear people say that Israel's indiscriminately bombing in Gaza. Listen, indiscriminate bombing by Israel would have about 100,000 dead civilians right now. Obviously, we want no dead civilians in Gaza. But Israel is doing everything they can to be precise. It's Hamas who made it clear.
Nick, he said this after the bombing of the refugee camp. And understand, Adam Kingenzer, or however you say his name, he's on Morning Joe to sell a book. So he'll say whatever he wants to say right now to keep him in the good graces of the Israel lobby as he's trying to sell his book. Because to say the proof is that they're not targeting civilians is because it's not 100,000 people dead is absurd. The proof is when they broke it down in another segment, 70% of the 8,000 people killed by a UN some organization is 70% women and kids. That's a different story. Go ahead.
Once again, Zionists, all they can do is lie. And that's why they losing the info war. No one's buying this no more. When you say Israel is not discriminately targeting civilians, how many IDF soldiers and spokespeople have you heard thus far that essentially was like, yeah, we consider all Palestinians, everyone there complicit? You had an IDF spokesperson on CNN that literally said, yeah, we are targeting civilians. How many times do Israel have to tell people that they are targeting civilians on purpose as a strategy to get Hamas to the table? For them to acknowledge they are targeting citizens, because that's their strategy. That's the famous clip when Mark Lamont Hill got the IDF guy to admit that. Yeah. He said, so essentially you're using civilian population as a hostage to get Hamas to go to the table. That is literally a war crime. That is you targeting civilians. That is what they admitted as a government is their strategy in this war. We're going to kill as many citizens as possible so Hamas will be forced to the table. Then they're going to blame Hamas for it. Like, you guys understand that the unhinged rationale that they were using, they're going to continue using this segment, completely justifies Russia. It justifies anyone who commits war crimes on any population. Because if you're the United States and you invaded Iraq and you say you're hunting terrorists, if there's any terrorists within a 50-mile vicinity of a school that you've grown up, they apparently justified based on the mindset of Benjamin Netanyahu that he laid out. Benjamin Netanyahu said on TV in front of people that hospitals and civilian targets are legitimate. But then on American corporate news and on UK corporate news, they come on and say, well, Israel not targeting civilians. That's like me. Imagine if I did multiple media appearances and say, I want to seize the means of production. I hate capitalism. I want to destroy the capitalist system. And then someone come out there and say, yeah, I think Nick is friendly to our capitalist system. That is what they saying. The exact opposite of what Israel's statements are. Israel's saying they want to kill as many fucking Palestinians as possible. But let's continue.
They would repeat the attacks of October 7th just now. It's Hamas who is not building bomb shelters that are clearly marked. They're building underground networks so they can move men and materials around to create another attack.
The refugee
By the way,
camp that was hit.
Yeah, I mean, look.
I'm gonna let it play a little bit now. And add to. I'm gonna this completely obliterate that lie. That there's never been proven that Hamas has secret tunnels that goes underground in hospitals. Do you guys know why Israel has not destroyed Hamas yet? At least the official spoken reason? Because they didn't know where Hamas was. The whole idea was they don't know where Hamas was. Hamas is in Gaza. They went from not knowing where Hamas is to now they know exactly. They got tunnels in every single hospital. They went from not knowing where Hamas was to they got tunnel systems on 5th Avenue right there. They have no idea what they're talking about. But they just repeat this on the corporate channels and they don't get demonetized. There is no evidence. In fact, I'm gonna dig this video because Hotspot posted this video that of a doctor that worked at one of these hospitals that Israel claimed is hiding Hamas. He's like, bro, if I worked in this hospital for 20 fucking years, I would know if there was a secret terrorist cell operating. And remember, their claim is that Hamas control these areas. So if you work at these hospitals, you know about it. You got to check in with Hamas. Right. You have IDs that Hamas check. This doctor's like, bro, at no point did I have any ID checked. I had anyone ever check into me that was part of Hamas. And there's been multiple doctors. That's just one video, but there have been multiple doctors that worked at the hospital that said the idea that these are terrorist hubs is absurd. I think that's my debunking. I'll let it play. I think you guys are smart enough to understand why it's fucking ridiculous. And they repeat it as fact. As fact.
It's do you put stuff in a refugee camp? Do you put military materials? Do you hide your high value targets? It's a terrible situation. But living in a densely populated area does not grant sanctuary to a terrorist organization.
Donnie, we don't want to amplify that entire interview with the Hamas.
So international law is
fake.
fake.
If you watch it, it's not.
So he just said international law is fake. I'll let it continue. That's essentially what he said. It's not real.
Shocking.
We can do
know
whatever
exactly
we want.
how they feel, but to hear him say it so explicitly that said we will do this again and again, and just saying out loud, our goal, let's be clear here, is to destroy Israel.
And you guys have
Which
been
is their legal right to do. And I'll be real quick, but I explained this in many segments before. You notice how they're not quoting any law here? You notice how their entire political analysis is based on their fees? How they feeling? International law dictates that Hamas and any Palestinian have the right to armed resistance against the criminal, illegal apartheid occupiers. They are not mentioning this on this segment. And you know how many segments, and I'm almost saying this out of general frustration, right? Out of all the segments I watch, CJ, you know how many lawyers they bring on? You know, people whose job to interpret the law, to speak about the law, and none of them quote international law?
They don't never talk
had
about
viral tweets about this, viral videos and hotspots about this, and not one person has been able to rebuke my claim that Hamas is the only party acting in legal accord here. Israel is the terrorist state, but I'll let it continue. I'll shut up for a while because this is hard to get through. I'll shut up.
I told you it's hard. It's
somehow
hard.
is graded differently. That there's no other country, there's no other people in the world who were attacked, beheaded, raped, massacred, mutilated, yet they have to use restraint. And you know, it attaches to this. I'm holding up the post of somebody ripping
Doesn't that
off
argument apply to the
hostages there.
Palestinians? Let it continue. I'll get to
Not
that later.
apparently not.
Because
And
he said
somehow
what Israel is
even in the
doing.
wake.
Essentially, what he said, what Hamas did was so bad that Israel is not allowed to show restraint. He like, you guys want them to show restraint despite the fact that they did all these lies. They beheaded babies and all this other bullshit that we lied about. So, based on their logic, Palestinians can do where the fuck they want to Israel after the apartheid criminal state that they put them in.
They're like, no. It only goes one way, and that's the white way. Only one way, sir. No, that's basically what
all right, I promise I'm done. Like, I promise. Jesus Christ, I promise. Like, it's horrible.
Of a Hamas leader saying, we're going to come again and again and destroy you. Yet Israel always seems to be on trial. Israel always seems to be defending themselves for defending
The
themselves.
double standard applies college campuses so much. You're a Jew at Harvard. You can't even walk across your own campus without being surrounded and attacked. You have students at Penn that you've shown.
I can't even believe
celebrating the raping of women, the slaughtering of babies, the burning of, if that had happened and people were celebrating violence, I want everybody at home to think about this. Any group on college campuses that, by the way, administrators have bubble wrapped everybody over the past 10 years with speech codes and safe spaces. Where are the safe spaces for the Jews? You know what? Jews don't have safe spaces, and they're not asking for them.
This is
But they should be able to walk
This is
across
pure
the campus without being assaulted by fellow students. And any other students that attacked students the way Jews are being attacked, they would be expelled in a second.
Somehow.
Expelled in a second.
Somehow, it's okay to go after Jews. It's okay. Somehow, through history, it just cheering. People are cheering, and Jews are being slaughtered. And it is the level, you guys have covered this all week, the level of anti-Semitism, the level of hate towards Jews from the beginning of time to today. It's mind-numbing. If this, to your point, if this happened to any other group, we showed a video we were talking just now of
I can't
a
even believe
woman.
it.
I don't know if you're going to play it. A woman cheering. It was in Philly last night. Our greatest moment. A student. Our greatest moment. If this was any other group, there would be outrage.
By
And
the
yet the
way-
media, other than this place and Nicole Show and a few other places, is silent. Doesn't freaking cover it.
And she says,
She felt empowered.
I
by what
know
happened.
that when you saw women being raped, so they were bleeding in their pants, when you saw babies beheaded, all these things, when you saw these images, she said, I know you felt empowered. Now, if that were said, let us go back. Let us go back to Charlottesville.
Listen to the.
I
He's going to bring
guarantee
black
you,
people in
if
this.
the administration and that
crazy.
mob saw any students, sure, they'd have been expelled in a second.
At UVA.
And yet
At
Israel,
UVA, they would have been expelled in a second. People who worked, Caddy, people who worked. who were
Caddy's
seen in
about
that
to bring this
crowd,
home.
Fired. But
There's no way
Now,
he get worse. There's no way.
Caddy is the one, and I've said this before. Caddy comes in with an international feel that sometimes, Nick, doesn't mesh with the propaganda line that they're talking about. So let's listen and see if Caddy does that here also.
You have people openly saying they feel empowered by the raping of Jewish women. They feel empowered by the images
that they're
of
talking
children
about.
No
being
one
shot in
believes
front
that.
of their
Do
parents
anyone
and
believe
parents.
that?
They just, where do they get these stories from? Like, I can show you 1,700 videos of Palestinians being fucked with in Palestine, but where are these footage of these things they're saying is happening? Where is it?
I can show you footage of pro-Palestinian protesters being attacked by Zionists. What they were saying is just flat out like how are they able to post this on YouTube? Like if there was a we know why. We know the answer to that question by asking rhetorically, right? Like if we posted a video with us just saying outright lies like this, our channel will be gone tomorrow afternoon. Like they just making up scenarios. This is just pure political fan fiction that they're writing here. This is
let's
peak insanity, but let's continue.
Yeah, let's listen to Katie. Listen to this.
It's being shot in front of their children. The videos are out there. They have exposed themselves. And yet, if you do unto them what universities would do unto any other group, then it's a violation of the First Amendment.
So I think here, as in, and I'm watching this in Europe too, we have a generation of kids, of students today who and I've spoken to many of them over the last couple of weeks, feel much further removed from the events of the Holocaust than my generation does. You know, my parents lived through it. So they were, of course, not Holocaust survivors, but they lived through the Second World War, and it felt intensely personal. And I'm struck, speaking to students in the United States at the moment, how little they feel that, how little they feel that the Holocaust still resonates with them. It feels like a historical event that happened in another time and couldn't possibly happen again. And students I have spoken to over the last couple of weeks are much more focused on what is happening in Gaza and the killings of Palestinians there. And you see it reflected in the polls. This is a real problem for the White House and for Joe Biden, because his numbers amongst young Americans are going down rapidly, and they are young Americans. You know, they're not, whatever, 59% of Americans now under the age of 30 don't support America giving weapons and military support to Israel at the moment. And that is at the moment when Israel has been attacked.
59% under 30 says no to this giving weapons, and that's under it. She's making the point to say this is with them under attack, to say that would mean, logically speaking, if they weren't under attack, that number would be a lot higher than even 59%, which they already think is way too high. And when you saw that pan shot, when you saw all of the people in that Brady Bunch shot, they were devastated. They can't understand, how did our youth, this is how they describe it, who's teaching them? Like Joe Scarborough's going to even mention that. Like, who are these people that's teaching our students? They can't understand why we haven't fought for this. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, he about to sound like Ron DeSantis and saying that the school teachers and critical race theory teaching people to hate.
That's exactly what they're saying.
He's not going to say it like that, because that's the right wing way of saying it, right? But he's going to use the liberal version, that making our point that both sides use the same rhetoric and have the same general beliefs. But one thing I want to quickly note, just to show you guys how the corporate media hacks lack humanity. They only care about the outcome of the red-blue game. You notice how Katty K doesn't say it's a tragedy that Biden is supporting a genocide of the Palestinian people, right? She said it's a tragedy that young people are leaving the Democratic Party,
right, because
Biden is committing genocide against the Palestinian people. These are things that my mind doesn't miss. Like, it shows their bias so much, because I am extremely biased as a commentator, right? Because I'm the kind of guy that will, my commentary would be like, fuck Joe Biden, he's helping commit a genocide. But their commentary is, why won't kids support Joe Biden while he's supporting the genocide? It's so fucking weird to me.
It's weird.
It doesn't make sense.
Looking at the same thing, completely different prism. All right, let me play like a 2 minutes straight, and then one last comment, then I'm going to get out of here. Yeah, 2 minutes straight, then we'll close this.
And I think you're seeing it's a shift in this country, that what has happened in the Middle East has laid bare in ways that are incredibly uncomfortable and hard to grapple with. But it's not just here. It's a generational shift that's happening in Europe as well. But I am surprised by the degree to which it's happening here, and the tensions that it's producing on campuses, you know, from a war far away, and how it's spilling over here.
And the lack of reaction is stunning. I mean, I'm surprised.
I just want to say one more
in
thing.
so many different ways.
It's a very personal thing, because not only am I part of the show, I'm a viewer, and I watch you guys every morning. And as a Jewish man, and we're all friends here, the way you guys have come forward and spoken about Jews and about anti-Semitism, I cannot tell you how much it means to myself and to other Jewish people. This show has been a bastion of honesty, of clarity, of bravery. I'm so proud to be associated with you.
Well,
guys.
you know, it's really pretty simple, isn't it?
This is the part I want you to hear before. I want to make sure it includes right here. He's going to bring in black people.
After the killing of other Black Americans, we speak out clearly. It's pretty simple. That's how I was raised. You fight and protect and defend those who are preyed upon. It doesn't matter who, and whether it is a Black teenager who is stopped by a police officer for driving while Black, or whether it's a Jew being harassed on a college campus, fearing for his or her safety. I'm sorry, that's how I was raised. That's how.
So apparently, Joe Scarborough said that's how I was raised. I was raised to be Malcolm X as a youth, and now I'm raised to fight for damn Zionism now. Apparently, Nick, he has been fighting alongside Malcolm X and everybody else. Nick, apparently,
these motherfuckers are millions, man. Like, bro, did you just change your backstory on live, bro? Did you just change your origin story, bro? Do you understand? Do you forget the premise of the show? The whole premise of the show is that Joe was an old Republican who's doing commentary with more liberal style anchors.
Right.
Like, that's Morning Joe. That's the point of the show. Is you a Republican who changed your mind and you having dialogue with liberals, you newly formed. He went from that. Now you now Joe's retconning himself. He's retconning himself into Malcolm X. He was a Republican in Congress in the 90s. He was part of the far right coalition with Newt Gingrich. He used to talk about this all the time. Now all of a sudden, man, I was back in the street. And I still was back in the brothers when they were struggling. I was there with Rodney King when they was marching. Like, bro, are you serious?
That's hilarious. That was hilarious.
That whole segment.
You got to go back and watch it because of time, and I got to go. That's because this is probably another 3 minutes. It's not that much more.
No, I think it's really just for itself, CJ. I think
it's like they just go on and on with this victimization. It is just crazy. Now, let's just say there's really a lot of real anti-Semitism going on. But if you're against Palestinians who are Semitic, that makes you anti-Semitic. So CJ, it's almost like the very people who are calling people anti-Semitic, you are, especially the Israelis. You came from Russia, you came here, and now look what you're doing to the Palestinian people who are Semitic. You are the anti-Semitic one. What are you talking about? You see how they flipped this whole thing, Nick? But that's my final words. I'll let you read super chats, and I know you got another.
CJ, I appreciate that because that's actually the perfect transition to this segment I want to do. So I think this is the perfect time to do it, because in that segment, and I'm gonna leave you with this. In that last segment, you notice how they did probably one of the most anti-Semitic things you can possibly do. They conflated the support with Israel to your support with Jewish people. Mm-hmm. But there are Jewish people who are anti-Zionist. So there's a panel, and I know Joe and Mika are Christians at least. It seemed like Danny Deutsch might be. It seemed like he was Jewish based on the end. But you have Christians that are telling Jewish people who are against Zionism that they are anti-Semitic. Zionism is the height of anti-Semitism. And one last thing I say regarding the segment is it's funny because you've seen quite a few of these liberal Zionists say this. They're like, man, we was with you, Black America. We marched with you, George Floyd. I put Black Lives Matter in my profile pic. You told me I did that for no reason. And they essentially saying, because I virtue signaled over these racial issues that my policy don't support, that you should allow me to commit genocide.
That's exactly what.
And they don't understand why we, as revolutionary Black out, and every single young Black motherfucker in this country are like, fuck you. You pretending to be on my side does not give you a fucking permission to, like, we got N-word pads, they get genocide pads. I'm marching for George Floyd. We can't get one genocide in us. You can't let us get one genocide. And I was marching with George Floyd. You guys think how this shit works? That's literally how they work. They think, Nick, but that's some good final thoughts. I'm out of here. I'll be watching your segment, and we'll talk. I think we might have another Nick and CJ tomorrow, but we'll talk, Nick. Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't planning on doing this segment, but actually a great segment to do after the one we just did. So you have, and I'm gonna start with this video. I guess I'll start with this video here. Actually, no, I'll start with this one. Because for all the people who pretend that they care about anti-Semitism and the state of the Jewish people, what's something I have said since the beginning on RBN, something that I have emphasized more than ever now. Nothing made Jewish people more unsafe than Zionism. whether you like that fact or not, you had Jews, and this is stuff I'm learning more and more about. You had Orthodox Jews, a ton of Jewish people that spoke up against the Nakba and the Israeli apartheid state. And what happened to them? They was financially ruined. They was blacklisted. They was fired from their jobs. They was brutalized in Israel. Ever since the beginning of Israel, Jewish people who had a conscience, who did not want to go along with genocide, have been marginalized and attacked by the West and their capitalist proxies. Now you have anti-Jewish protesters on college campuses that Joe Biden wanted to take the police state after. There's a blacklist flowing around. There's a ton of anti-Zionist Jewish people, I'm sure, that have been thrown on blacklists, saying we want to financially ruin these people. We don't want these people to get jobs because they speak out against Israel. So what happened? The state of Israel has ruined the lives of these Jewish people. For what? Simply standing up and saying that you guys are committing crimes not in our name. So once again, another example how just the existence of Israel and the ideology of Zionism leads to anti-Semitism. That alone is anti-Semitism. You have Israel. Is Joe Scarborough, are they worried about this? Is Donny Deutsch worried about this? Are the people who are worried about the rise of anti-Semitism and the violence against Jewish people, are they worried about this? Ever since the beginning of the genocide, you had Jewish people in Israel that have been protesting their own state, and they've been getting brutalized by the police. There's the footage I've been having on in the background, right? Isn't this violence against Jewish people? Oh, I know what's gonna happen. You're gonna have Joe Scarborough. You're gonna have a bunch of Christians like Joe Biden in the Democrat Party. They're gonna tell us that these Jewish people, they're not the real Jews. So do you guys understand what's happening? You have evangelical Christians that are joining with fascist Zionist Jewish people to label Jewish people who are against genocide as fake Jews and label them as okay on committing violence against them. This is the ideology of Zionism. It is legit evil. You want to see this in real time? This is anti-Zionist Jews being told that they should be thrown in gas chambers. Am I making that up? I have to be making that up, right?
Hitler made a mistake. You should have been in the gas chamber. Too bad. But we're here and you're gonna go to hell.
So this old lady, I mean, she's old enough to see the Holocaust. Nigga, she was there when the Native Americans were genocided. She went to a bunch of Jewish people who were protesting the state of Israel, and she said that you guys need to be thrown in gas chambers. If anything in the world is anti-Semitic, it will be this, right? This anti-Semitism. I'm stunned, you guys see. I'm stunned. She said, if you guys couldn't hear it, she said Hitler made one big mistake. You guys should have been thrown in the gas chamber. What did I tell you guys earlier this week? Zionism is Nazism. They want to do exactly what the Nazis did. Here she is glorifying gas chambers. And Donny Deutsch, Joe Scarborough, Sean Hannity, and a bunch of evangelical Christians are going to cheer her on. These people who equate Israel and Zionism with anti-Semitism, like the entirety of the media is doing, they agree with her. They agree with them in the notion these are fake Jewish people. So you have Jewish Voice for Peace. You have all these organizations that have been standing up against the genocide because Zionism is fake. They are bastardizing Judaism. and they are, and I'm furious for these people because I'm furious at our Black misleadership. I'm furious at people who bastardize what racial struggle is, right? People who turn racial struggle into Democrat identity politics. That shit makes my blood boil. So I can only imagine what truly conscious Jewish people feel when evangelical Christians, and the worst among their religion, the Zionist Jews, are telling the people of conscience that they are the fakes. Beyond infuriating. Yeah, Joe Biden, a Christian, by the way, Kamala Harris, a Christian, their administration is trying to criminalize pro-Palestinian protests, go after students, a lot of them who are Jewish. You have Jewish young people protesting against Zionism, but Joe Biden, a Christian, is sticking the police state on these Jews. And people don't see why this is deeply problematic. You guys don't see why this is problematic? So let me play this video because this is one of the many Jewish people with conscience. This is a rabbi. Let me get her name. Let me put respect on her name. Rabbi Jessica Rosenberg. She interrupted Joe Biden. And look at what she had to say.
Mr. President,
Oh
if
my
you care
God.
about Jewish people as a rabbi, I need you to call for a ceasefire right now.
Do you guys see the anger that they had at this rabbi who I want to play it again. Listen to the video. They was 100% okay with everything she had to say until she uttered the word ceasefire. She said, I'm a rabbi. And they all, okay, I'm interested. And then the second she says the word ceasefire, that's when she lost the entire room. You guys want to see these bloodthirsty, psychopathic liberals?
Mr. President, if
Oh
you
my
care
God.
about Jewish people as a rabbi, I need you to call for a ceasefire right now.
You guys see the second that she lost the crowd? The second that she uttered the word ceasefire.
I need you to call for a ceasefire right now.
You can literally hear someone hissing at her like a bloodthirsty snake. Like a genocidal snake. They're literally hissing, hey, get away. We don't want to see the sunlight. The light is blinding our eyes. Hiss. Like snakes in the crowd, snakes in the grass. You can't make this up. These people think they are standing with Jewish people. They think I'm an anti-Semite. They think people who are against genocide and bombing babies are anti-Semites. But this is a rabbi, I should say. Sorry. This is a rabbi who they are denying a voice. You guys understand what's happening here? These are a bunch of Christians listening to a Christian speaker, and they are denying the right of a Jewish speaker, and they think they are speaking on behalf of the Jewish people. Listen to the hisses and the snakes. And people, once again, the dumb left, the majority report left, the rational national left, the Olayemi left, they believe that liberals are a friend. Like, the Bernie left hate us because they're like, man, you guys always go after liberals. You guys always go after liberals. Don't you know liberals is our good friend, our best friends? They are our closest enemies. No, liberals are evil. They are the scourge of humanity. They are the greatest they are the greatest purveyor of evil. And they get stuff done that conservatives and right-wingers couldn't ever dream of doing. Can you imagine the amount of progressives, including Bernie Sanders, and the people that would call for a ceasefire right now if Donald Trump was president instead of Joe Biden? One more time. Look, these are the people that people want us to coalition with. They would have criticisms of you if you organize with a conservative neighbor. But Black Power Media, for example, and Jackie, they want us to only march and organize with liberals. Like, how dare you say you want to organize with everybody? Don't you know we only organize with liberals? No, liberals are just as evil as conservatives. This is psychopath shit right here.
Mr. President, if
Oh
you
my
care
God.
about Jewish people, as a rabbi, I need you to call for a ceasefire right now. Mr. President,
Oh my God.
Absolutely disgusting people. So this is the tweet. And it went quite viral. This is more anti-Zionist Jews calling this out. Last thing I want to share before I get out of here, kind of unrelated, but the United States and Israel are isolated. I think my new hotspot video might be out. Let's go. I think I might end on that video. Let me put my video. But yeah, we ended on my hotspot video that just came out. I gotta share it. But I'll just read this headline. I might cover this more in detail later. But this is Russia being base as always. Israel has no right to defend itself, says Russia at UN. Russia condemned efforts by Arab states to normalize relations with Israel before the Israeli-Palestine conflict is settled. I am at the point where I'm at. I told you so to a lot of these Western chauvinist social democrats who are good on the Palestine issue, right? But they demonize China and Russia so much. They demonize China and Russia, despite the fact that China and Russia call for lifting the Cuban embargo. They call for the end of U.S. sanctions. They are aligned with U.S. with the foreign policy that leftists should be calling for. You have China that recognized Palestine, who China and Russia came out with a statement where they said the only way you can resolve this conflict by having an independent state of Palestine. Stuff that progressive politicians will never say in this country, but they hate China and Russia. I don't idolize China and Russia. I don't want you guys to get twisted. But we gotta move in a calculated way. We gotta understand who have our interests at heart when it comes to foreign policy and international politics. The U.S. regime, NATO, and the United Nations are an enemy of the working class globally. They're an enemy of peace. In Russia and China, with our personal disagreements and flaws in how they run the government, that is not our business. They are here to stand against the violent Western capitalistic regimes and give sovereignty to people who have been victims of the United States. That's why I have nothing but contempt, and I will forever tell these people so. The people who worship Bernie and all these politicians, but they have Russian Putin derangement syndrome. They don't know who the true enemies are. So I'll read some super chats, and then I guess we can get out of here soon. Because I want to save my stories for another time. I got another story I want to get to, but maybe a little bit longer. Actually, I do want to show you one more. We doing some rapid fire shit real quick. I want to see if I can find that fraudulent slip. Because there's this story I want to show about this IDF spokesman that was on CNN. But I want to do that with CJ. I may say that with Nick and CJ. I want to show you guys this here. Let's do some quick ones. I just want to show you this amazing fraudulent slip by the Israel's ambassador to Australia. Look at this.
I'm also upset that since October the 7th, the focus at the moment is on the other side. People are trying to suggest that there is some sort of moral equivalence. There is no moral equivalence. We are not the victims.
He said, we are not the victims. That's just like George Bush and his slip where he condemned the crimes of Putin when he invaded Iraq. Oh, I mean Ukraine. These people conscious, and it's probably eating themselves up it keeps themselves up at night. They know they're the bad guys. So this fraudulent slip says everything all the time. Look,
We are not the victims. Sorry, we are the victims. We are not the aggressor. Sorry. I'm also upset that since October the 7th, the focus at the moment is on the other side. People are trying to suggest that there is some sort of moral equivalence. There is no moral equivalence. We are not the victims.
Classic. Anyone who believes, and this is the general mainstream American belief, that Israel the victims here, it just shows that your mind completely colonized or you're a willful propagandist. Why condemn Hamas when Israel is the aggressor and Hamas is retaliating based on the rules of engagement that Israel set? I won't. I think for 499 Zachary, progressive intellectual Eric Weinstein on Trigonometry podcast with Sam Harris said Gaza isn't occupied. Should play react to a clip of it. Man, that podcast is probably unbearable. How the hell is Gaza not occupied? So Israel can shut off the electricity, food, and fuel for Gaza, but Gaza is not occupied. How does that make sense? I got 5 on it. What's popping, Christian? I got 5 on it. My RBN family, my afternoon just got better. RBN in heavy rotation. What's popping? I think we also got JB and Sabby tonight too. So we still got a lot of great content for you guys. I appreciate that. I'm not sure the currency here, but I appreciate the 129. Samuel, I love to hear you both talk to Kurt Hackberth or Granado Sija about MX. Not sure who they are, but it could be interesting. So much Americans need to know from the drug war, AMLO, pesticides, and GMO. I agree with that last sentiment. Well said, Samuel. Thank you for the super chat. This is Random Nobody who sent $5. I appreciate you, Random Nobody. You someone to me, man. Man, just keep your head up, man. You're somebody. You know what I mean? You're someone to me, at least. Okay? Thank you for the $5. APAC money has compromised most politicians. They are foreign agents and traders. Remember how liberals want us to be worried about Russian collusion, right? Russian collusion. Russian is controlling our government. No, that's always been Israel, actually. Thank you for $5. Chima. Another lie the State Department media spews is that Hamas plans to infiltrate and attack. Oh, yeah. That's my hotspot video. I'm talking about that. Actually, let me see. Where's my hotspot? I got to share it. I think they just posted it while I was live. If you guys are on Twitter, make sure you guys follow Hotspot. They're the ones who actually let me plug them. Let me do a shameless plug because they're the ones who help me share edit these videos. I send them all the receipts. Obviously, I'll shoot all of it. All of it is my idea, but I can't edit videos. So they're the one who edit these videos. So if you're on Twitter, give them a follow. They're an up-and-coming media company that is helping spread anti-imperialist news. That's how I would. They I don't know. They classify themselves like that. I'm not putting their word. I'm not like a spokesman for them, but they do anti-imperialist news that hold the government accountable. I'll try to find my video. I think they posted it. Yeah, we're gonna end on this. This is gonna be our ending video for today. That's gonna be our ending video. Only a few more. Thank you, Sam. Thank you for the 199, Sam. Telling Jews we have to be genocidal is anti-Semitic. Thank you, Sam. Thank you for the 1999, John. Liberal boomers and older Gen X want to keep using World War II and Zionism as their get-out-of-jail-free card to ignore past and present settler colonialism. They can't deal with the past. Absolutely well said. We got 2 more here. Thank you, DC. Biden isn't just Christian. He's Catholic. Historically, Catholics have slaughtered more Jews than Nazis. I don't know that much about that argument because I don't know that much about religion and stuff. But, man, that's a pretty powerful argument to make, isn't it? That's weird. I don't know that much about that kind of stuff. But, man, that's kind of weird that Jews kind of forgiven that. But anyway, I guess I don't know that much about that, I guess. Thanks for a 499 NK. It's a pretty privileged position to criticize the method of war of people that are experiencing a genocide. Absolutely. That's why I haven't read the Hamas charter until now. I never was interested in what the Hamas charter said because it didn't matter to me, because I'm not going to set the terms of engagement for people who are colonized using my tax dollars. It literally did not matter what the Hamas charter fucking said as far as I'm concerned. But, by the way, everything you was told about the Hamas charter is wrong. And it's a lie. In the Hamas charter from 2017, they say they are not at war with Jews. They are fighting the Zionist regime. And they explicitly laid out how there is not a religious war, not about Jews. It's about liberating Palestine. But meanwhile, on every fucking Western news channel, from MSNBC, from CNN, from Fox News, to right-wing independent media, from Ben Shapiro, from everybody, they say in the Hamas charter, they want to slaughter Jews. So I looked it up just to see if that was true or not, and of course it wasn't. Of course it's not. But to be honest, and this is my personal opinion, even if it did, I wouldn't give a fuck. Because all they know is war and death. So even if they did say kill all Jews, they probably mean Zionists, because that's all they fucking know if you live in Gaza. That last part, I know I probably won't convince anyone on, but I wouldn't give a fuck what they said in that damn charter, to be honest. That's just me. I'm going to end it on this video. This is my hotspot video that literally just dropped. I'm probably going to post this on YouTube again anyway, but I will wrap this up as the FBI director, Christopher Wray, told the Senate that Hamas may launch terrorist attacks on United States soil. How the hell are they going to do that? Hamas, who are stuck in Gaza, that are fighting for the liberation of the Palestinian people, for some reason, going to cross the Atlantic Ocean and attack you in Utah.
Bro, these motherfuckers say anything to get people to support genocide.
Since the majority of people are now turning against the genocide against the Palestinian people, the establishment are using very interesting tricks to trick people into supporting genocide. Bro, I sense a false flag incoming. It wouldn't surprise me, considering the FBI's history of creating more terrorism than they actually solved. Christopher Wray went to the Senate floor like, it would be a shame if we found a Hamas terrorist attack on American soil, wouldn't it? He could really drum up support for the genocide against the Palestinian people if we found an Hamas terrorist targeting Washington, D.C., wouldn't we? I can definitely see the establishment pulling this off since they've been trying to paint the Palestinian people as terrorists. Man, the establishment is getting sloppy. They are now telegraphing their false flags.